always catered to the strength of each one, but they never made one give an advantage over the other one. It's just you had to choose which one of these properties do you want the most. And it really was just whatever system you had, that's the one that you wanted.
Yeah, Nintendo always had the better graphics. The Sega, like you said, had the speed, and they had the connections where they had the blood codes, so they didn't have,
Mortal Kombat. You could see blood.
Hey, let me interrupt here. Can we go live? I do have to go to bed in like 20 minutes.
We're live now.
Oh. Well, I didn't know. All right, so what happened on Twitter today? I saw J-Dub. I see what you just tweeted about 9.6 T-flops.
Let's set the tone. Let's set the tone right now, right?
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
So welcome, friends, family, my fellow gamers. This is your only friend, these YouTube streets, PorterRock77, and we are live. Hey, hit the like button, retweet it out. We got special guest Optimus Code, who's gonna bring some sensibility, some education. He's gonna bring out a little bit. I told you so. Up in here, you know what I'm saying? For all those that didn't want to listen to him. So, all right. And of course, we got Jay Barry up in here. We got J Dub. We got Craig Harris, who's in a rush because he has to take his nap. Right now, I'm gonna be honest. Like right now, I feel like the Joker with the codes to the nuclear bomb, and I'm just like, I don't know what to do with it right now. Like this is insane. But I will say this before we start getting into the thing, I want to make something real clear, so that way everybody in the chat. We'll know. We are not, the statements we are making is not about the Xbox Series X itself. It's not about the hardware itself. It's not even about the game Dirt 5 or Yakuza or anything by itself.
Or the developers.
We are or the developers and how hard they work. We're not here to say they're lazy or anything like that. What we are talking about is the promise and advertisement of what we were supposed to get. Mm-hmm. And the bashing of other consoles because it was believed these consoles couldn't see certain metrics. And the metric was simply native 4K 60 with ray tracing. That was the standard. Mm-hmm. That was the standard people were advertising.
Hey, some people said native 4K 120 frame P-Rock.
People advertise, and I'm about to show the image. Optimus, if you didn't see these images, you're going to see them now. I'm live on the podcast. 4K 120.
Stop this foolishness.
Yes.
Oh, you think I'm lying?
we tell no lies.
Hey, don't worry. You know what? I'm gonna post the image right now. Why belay the inevitable? Why belay the inevitable?
Throw that thing up, P-Rock.
Throw that thing up. Look at that. Look at your friend. Read it right now. Go to the podcast on YouTube. Look at the image.
I'm there now.
Read.
That was a joke. He was making
no. My man was serious like a heart attack.
He got a video linked and he got the hashtag.
Look, I remember this.
I ain't no joke.
Catching flag. Look, y'all got me in a position being a cheerleader.
No. Listen, you don't have to defend him. Look at this. Look at this.
He was catching flag for the crackdown thing.
Look at this.
And as in mockery, he made a similar tweet talking about what he was going to do with Dirt 5 as mockery of his own crackdown.
You still looking at the screen?
Look at this.
Yeah.
Look at this one.
Still looking at the screen, Optimus?
Look at this one.
Yeah, I ain't got nothing to say on this.
And this one's
Optimus, we can do this all day with you, brother. We got all
all right. But here's the thing. We're going to be serious, right? Okay?
Yeah.
Everybody, my followers, hell, I play on the PlayStation 4 vanilla. So I never been about the power. I never hyped consoles as the best way to, I never did that because I know consoles for what they are. They're simple, closed box that includes a CPU, GPU, RAM, controller, accessories, all this stuff.
Convenience.
For $400.
Yes.
I will never compare this thing to a PC, and never. So let's get this straight off.
It depends on what PC. Because most people talk about a lot. Depending on the conversation you have, when some people use the word PC, they mean the gold chain PC.
Yes, that's exactly.
And some people mean the bottom. So it will compare to some PCs, just not the top. Yeah.
With the PS5 and Xbox Series X, no one compared to the bottom of the barrel PC. It was always like some of these console gamers, they had this fetish to try to get $3,000 PCs for $400. And this fetish has been around for decades. It's not like it started this gen. I don't know why, but there's this eagerness to say I got me a high-end PC for $500. Every gen, they try to do this to themselves.
Okay, let me say this. Let me say this is the second oldest man here. When that Jensen dude from NVIDIA cooked up that can of whoop ass in his kitchen with those cards, what NVIDIA did was he pushed both these consoles to entry level. That's what they did. Now these are entry level consoles. Still very good, but you're right. I don't know why people are expecting. Like I said this before, Porter Rock. I mean, I was on this podcast, and JW, you've heard me say this too. Ray tracing isn't going to be as big a deal as like HDR was. Not to gaming. It's just HDR was a huge big thing versus ray tracing, which is just going to be kind of. I mean, it is. The best ray tracing is still on PC, without a doubt.
I disagree with that. I disagree.
Yeah, I'm not sure I can roll with that.
Like, here's the thing. Like for Spider-Man, the ray tracing is gorgeous.
That'll be true. But as time goes on and the developers get more comfortable with the tools and stuff, I think we're going to have some incredible ray tracing.
But as big as HDR was, I don't know.
I'm going to be honest. I think
the thing is, ray tracing it's just expensive, you know what I mean? Yeah. Especially how you want to implement it. But especially if you're like a detail whore, ray tracing is huge in my opinion, because I like detailing. I like to look around a little nook and cranny, see my actual reflection. I love that stuff.
Did you just say nook and cranny?
Yeah, like you know what I mean? You go around the game world and you look around.
Well, hey, look, I'll be happy to stand corrected, but right now, would you rather, this generation coming, would you rather play at 60 or at 30? Now, I don't have a problem with 30. I've said this multiple times, but your 60 FPS games, as of right now, your bigger games at launch may not have your ray tracing on there. They may have a mode with it, but you're going to be struggling. Right now, the only game I know that definitely has that on PlayStation at 60 that I've seen, let me make this clear, is the Gran Turismo game.
The thing is, like I said earlier.
All right, fair enough.
I said earlier that. Yeah, I mean, you have the choice to play both, you know, and I'm going to play both. To be honest with you, a lot of these games, my first playthrough, I'm going to play at 30 frames with the ray tracing and the graphical detail. And then my second playthrough is going to be with what I've been, playing with performance.
Well, I'm doing that too, because I'm coming to your house, Jay Boy. I'm taking yours, so I don't have one.
Can I jump in there real quick, y'all? So first, I'm happy to be on the show with my only friend in these YouTube streets.
Yeah.
And
I slipped them all the warning signs. I'd be like, you might want to check this out. You might want to be careful.
I might tell that story a little bit later, but hey, y'all making one assumption here that I think is like prevalent, but it doesn't necessarily have to be. Okay. And we keep thinking 4K with ray tracing. That's not the only option. I personally, and I've been saying this for months, I think 4K is a waste. And I
agree.
1400 or 1080 with some form of DLSS with ray tracing is definitely achievable. Yes. And so it's not the case that we have to choose ray tracing or frame rates. Yes. If everybody's just willing to accept a lower resolution, we can have all of that.
Well, listen, I absolutely agree with you. Do y'all remember a couple of months ago when we saw that Unreal Engine demo on PlayStation 5? Yeah. That shit looked amazing, right? Nobody knew what resolution it was in until they finally came out and said, I believe it was 1440p.
Mm-hmm. But you're right.
They had 8K assets. Yeah. It had, the engine was a brand new engine, and the developers did what they did for that demo to show you what was possible in a short period of time. It was a showpiece. And guys were still out there bragging, talking about, PS5 can only do 1440p. And I said, if 1440p can give me some shit that looks like this, I'll take it.
Yeah, I still can't believe what I saw. I still can't believe that they only worked on that for like 6.5 months.
Yeah.
That was amazing. I mean, I still can't. When you watch it, I'm like, wow.
Like me personally, like Spider-Man. Spider-Man they have native 4K 30 with ray tracing, bells and whistles. The performance mode is dynamic 4K. 60 frames, but no ray tracing. Yeah, right? Me personally, I would want Sony, if they're going to do performance mode, don't do dynamic 4K. Just drop it down to lock 1440p, bump it up 60 frames, and keep the ray tracing.
Yep.
That's what I would want them to do. Screw the dynamic 4K. Screw it. Just lock it at 1440p. Locked.
But they may have done that. They may have tried that, and they may not have gotten the result that they.
Well, Craig, I'm not sure that.
I think they're trying to sell the 4K.
Exactly, it's the marketing now.
They're trying to stick with 4K no matter what.
This point,
fair enough. Yeah. That's fair. That's a fair observation. Point,
all the marketing materials is 4K. The proliferation of 4K TVs. You want to advertise, you got a 4K device because people going to want, devices to drive these new 4K TVs. People are starting to invest more and more. So 4K is part of the pitch. I'm just saying, I agree with Porter Rock, though. If you're going to do that, that's fine. But in your performance mode, go ahead and drop it to 1440p. Keep the 4K for your sales and all of that good stuff. That's smart business. But when you're giving people a choice, give them the real choice. Let them drop all that shit to get to what they want.
So I'm with you, but is there a chance that they tried that and they didn't get the results that they thought they were going to get? I'm just saying, in testing, we may never know.
Well, that's going to lead to the question.
Possible, but it's unlikely.
That's going to lead to the question I'm going to ask them.
I'm one of those people. I'm one of those people where I want the game however the developer intended for me to get it. I'm personally not a developer, and so I don't want to force them to do some shit that obviously they didn't see fit in doing. Right? Yeah, they could try to push native 4K on the Pro, but if I get it and I'm playing and it's dropping down to 15 frames a second, then I'm going to bash them for that. So I think gamers need to take the step back away from the resolution. Right? Digital Foundry said it tonight. The dude tweeted out, resolution is no longer be benchmarked by anything. Resolution is no longer
when did this happen?
Absolutely nothing anymore.
All right, when did that happen? I was at work today, so all this happened today. Oh my God! Sorry, I missed it.
And I'm saying,
saying that though.
So Optimus, quick question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Question. So going from 4K, and maybe educate us on this. Deciding to go from 4K and dropping down to 1440p, how much resources get freed up to allow for 60 frame gaming and stuff explain to us how intensive resolution is trying to hit native 4K and stuff. If you could give us a little.
Yeah, let me try to, in layman's terms. All right, look at it like this. Let's just say I say, Porter Rock, you in the Marines, you train, and I want you to run a mile as fast as you can. And you run the mile as fast as you can using all your energy, all your strength. Yeah. And then once you get down there, I tell you to go back, and I say, okay, now I'm finna put 500 pounds on your back, and I want you to do that same thing again.
Okay.
You're like, oh, man, so you're going as fast as you can, but you're not going to be able to go as fast as you did without that 500 pounds.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what the resolution is. The more resolution it is, the more energy and effort it takes from your CPU, GPU to go the same distance. Because where you were drawing 1,080 vertical lines, now you have to draw for full 2K 2,180 vertical lines at 3,000 pixels per line. So the point is you are doubling your workload. So when you go from 1440p to 4K, you are doubling. So that's basically saying I told you to run with 250 pounds on your back, and then you did it as fast as you could. Then I put another 250 and told you to do it again. So now you're running with 500. If I take that 250 off and just let you run just with your regular 250 that you're accustomed to, you will be a lot faster. And 1080p is running with nothing on your back at all. Okay. And that is by far the fastest. But again, like it's the lower resolution, so you ain't gonna look as good, but you will perform better.
Yeah. But so 1440p is like the good, like you say, halfway point, because you got really good resolution. 1440p still looks good, and if you can, and if you can still do ray tracing with lock 60 frames, right?
Yeah,
that could potentially, in some people's opinion, look better than 4K 30 with ray tracing.
Well, so just to be clear,
could that, because I know some people
this is not. So I don't know how many of y'all game on PC, but this is not potentially could look.
No.
A large percentage of PC gamers game on 1440p with max settings with ray tracing. This is not theoretical. This is proven. The numbers show that the majority of gamers choose this over 4K all the time on a daily basis.
Because the combination of frames and ultra settings just looks too good.
Yeah, it's the sweet spot. Absolutely.
Okay. 1440p is a great resolution to me. It looks great.
Yes.
Yeah. Also, here's another thing that people don't pay attention to, because monitors and TVs work a little differently. Well, a lot differently. But with a TV, if you have a 4K TV, everything you watch is in 4K. If your source is 4K or not, your TV is going to upscale everything to 4K. And if you've got a really good OLED or whatever you got, whatever you can afford that you're working with, you are going to look at everything in 4K. So if it's native 4K or not, if your TV has a really good upscaler, then 1440p upscaled to 4K is going to look fabulous.
Yeah. Let me hit some super chats up. We got CB3. He says, well, look like Sony's going to crip walk all over Xbox again, shaking my damn hand. I wonder if Xbox ever gets tired of it. Thank you, CB3. Sylvia Lehman. Thank you for the super chat. She rocking out with us. She's just there showing support. Thank you, Sylvia. David Gaines. What's good, fellas? Next Gen starts with PS5. La Falau. Yo, thank you very much.
What up, player?
That's my guy right there.
Yeah, that's my guy right there.
David Gaines. What's up?
Steelers for life. Facts.
Muriolo, he said, I'm so disappointed with Series S 900p in 2020. POG. Like, all right. And Matrix.
What's POG? What that mean?
I have no idea. I know. I say in the Marine Corps, POG. I mean, I guess I don't know. I don't think he's meaning that.
I think POG stands for play of the game.
I guess.
Like that move was play of the game. POG.
And then Matrix.
I think that's what it means.
He goes, Matrix puts. Damn, that thing just jumped past me. Okay, he goes, look it up. Resolution scale on Google Images. Okay. And then Manny TV. Ray tracing was the death of native 4K 60 this gen. Possibly so. So let's do this.
But 2080 Ti, it was very difficult to do 4K 60 with ray tracing on a 2080 Ti with like an i9. Like it's not. I don't know why people think you can just pick ray tracing off a tree and just put it in your game. That's not how it works. That stuff is mad expensive.
Yes. So one video Digital Foundry did was with Spider-Man, but they used it as an example to break down how difficult it is to have a game at 30 frames with ray tracing. And they gave examples of what a developer might have done with concessions. Do this, do that. And I looked at the video, I'm like, man, that ray tracing is a monster. It's like,
you know what P Rock with that video though?
But you know what they do with the video? They trash Spider-Man. I'm like, my god! Like,
but you guys gotta understand, because Insomniac came out and said, the picture that everybody's looking at, that picture is months old. Yeah, they said the rate it got better from what they said is
they did.
Insomniac. So they believe people is judging it now, but they said it's better than what it is as the current state of
I definitely believe that 100%.
Okay. So here's the thing. So this is why I got Optimus Code right here, right? So for months, people, you got people who don't make games on podcasts and conversations, making claims of that these consoles will perform at native 4K 60 with ray tracing, the bells and whistles. They have the specs, they have the power. Look at the spec sheets. Just look at the spec sheets. Can you give us a breakdown on what these people who make these promises, what are they missing? What did they fail to realize that's going to bite them in the ass? Or what actually bit them in the ass? Right?
Yeah.
The people that said Series X doesn't need a performance mode. It's going to do native 4K 60 across everything. What did they not realize? Please educate us. What did they not realize? The reality of game development.
So if anybody been following me at any amount of time on Twitter, y'all have seen, I've been like, y'all keep me out of these hardware spec conversations. Don't tag me. Quit asking me about this or that, because all of this hardware stuff is meaningless. Like, it means nothing. And when I say it means nothing, they think I mean it's last on the list. And I'm like, no, it literally means nothing. And there are two reasons for that. The first reason is these machines aren't even released yet. So right now, all of it's just numbers on paper. Until we get an actual retail unit and you get some independent technologists that can run benchmarks and all of this stuff, we don't even know if those numbers are real. So in the technology space, what we call that before a product is released, we say those numbers are aspirational. They aspire to reach these targets, but we don't actually know if they will or not.
Great question. I'm gonna use an example. So I'm in the military, right? I'm an electronics technician, right? So I fix radios.
Okay.
So we get, for example, a radio system from Harris or Raytheon, and the spec says 50 watts of transmit power. But when you actually put it through our test equipment, through our power meter, it maybe averages anywhere between 39 to 44, which we consider Marine Corps acceptable. You're not going to get the full 50 watts. I've never seen a radio that it just doesn't. You know what I'm saying? So it's something like that. There's the technical spec sheets, but when the actual turns on, it doesn't perform to that level. There's always that range.
That's a great example.
Another example is when you get internet, right? They be like, oh yeah, you get 400 meg service. You ain't getting 400 megs. That's what they're pushing you. But in reality, you're not going to get the 400 megs. You'll probably, if you got a good service provider, you'll probably be in the 300s. If you got a mediocre, gas is in the 200s. And that depends on your own router, which you bought. Because they love to say that Spectrum, Cox Cable, they like to say, nah, it's your router. Your router's not pushing 400 or whatever.
Right.
Don't get a better router. And it's true, though. It might be your router. So something
and it
like
could
that.
be the number of people that's sharing that line with you. Like, there's just so many factors. And the same thing with a collar or any hardware. Like, even an NVIDIA card, of the cards they produce, there's a certain tolerance, right? That the card is within certain tolerances. But then some of, like, on one run, maybe only 80% of the GPUs actually fit the specs. And so, like, they won't sell that other 20%. They'll keep them in a lab and, like, testing and research and development or whatever. But nothing in hardware like that is ever 100%. That's just not how it works. And so, because it's not an exact science like that. So, like, right now, if we all of us on this panel could build us some PCs, and we could go and we can buy like we can buy a motherboard and buy like 3 processors each, because we want to overclock. And each one of those processors, if we test it, is going to be slightly different from the other. Even though there's going to have the same numbers on the paper, they're not going to be the same. And then some of them can overclock better than the other one, although they are advertised as the exact same chip. And I've done that plenty of times. You buy 3 or 4, you overclock them, whichever one gives you the best performance, you keep that one and you take the other 2 back. Do it all the time, because they're not going to be identical. It just can't. That's just not how it works. So the first reason that those numbers are meaningless is because right now we don't even have any retail units. So nothing has been built. So all of those numbers right now are aspirational. This is what they expect to happen. Now, they're not lying. Sony's not lying. Microsoft's not lying. Nobody's lying to you. This is the numbers that they target. However, once we get the retail units, we'll be able to see what's actually true. What do they really do? And even then, it's going to go back to what I just said. There's going to be some tolerances. And so the numbers in that case will be more real. But the numbers don't mean anything, because now you get the developers that have to take advantage of those numbers. And the developers are going to need toolkits and compilers from the platform makers to squeeze every ounce of energy that they can out of these systems. And until that tooling matures, you can have a machine that does 4 billion teraflops, but right now you only have the APIs to get you like 100. So you only going to get 100. You're only good as your software, which is going to be your weakest link. Whatever your weakest link is, that's what you are. So even if the machines can do all of that stuff, you're still going to need APIs and tooling to maximize that hardware. And honestly, that's just not going to exist yet, period. Because they're going to need time to grow into the hardware with the APIs. And then third, We don't even know what patterns and techniques are going to present themselves. And without getting too technical, one of the things with the Unreal Engine demo that we all looked at, they talked about how the Unreal Engine itself would do a lot of the polygon culling. And that, long story short, what that means is I want to draw a scene that's got like 5 billion polygons in it, 5 billion triangles. But the software in the Unreal Engine can do all this stuff. And without the human doing it, the engine in real time on the fly can reduce that 5 billion triangles to 100,000 and draw this beautiful scene with way less with like 1% of the polygons, which is going to make it way faster. Those types of techniques, and once everybody sees how they do that, then they're going to be like, okay, wow, the way we were culling polygons before needs to be adjusted. We're going to use this new technique that Unreal Engine has discovered. So now everybody's going to start coding with this new culling technique. But if your GPU was optimized for the old technique, where we thought you would be really fast and get us these performance gains, now nobody's using that anymore. So now that benefit has been nullified because nobody's using it. And so it's just like the techniques and patterns that the development community, and it's not just one shop, like developers talk, they share techniques with each other. At some point, the best practices are going to emerge for what the hardware is. And then at that point, you will be able to start squeezing what the actual numbers are. So all in all, it's just way too soon. Number one, we don't have no actual devices, so we don't know what the number's going to be. Two, once we do have the devices, we don't know that the software is mature. And then third, we don't even know what's going to be the prevailing technique to maximize performance from the developer community. So any of these claims of absolute performance gains, all of it's just speculation. We don't know any of it yet.
You know what I do know, though, on Optimus?
What's that?
That Spider-Man Miles Morales looks amazing.
Yeah, no pun.
Hey, them developers are mature and they got the tools proper, because you see that Miles Morales shape up? Oh my God, that thing sharp.
Yeah, no, his hair does look good. Hey, but J-Dub, these dudes are mad as hell on Twitter about what you posted. I guess you circled about the 9.6 T-flops. They are mad as hell. I mean,
P-Rock going in today. Look at the screenshots he got up. Yo, P-Rock now playing today. Okay, P-Rock, I see what energy you want. All right.
I'm just saying, man. It's happening all over again. I go a whole year of this tech talk. I'm like, man, this shit's happening.
Listen, here's the thing, though, right?
Why is this happening?
In 2017, we were here before 2017.
Yes.
When the guys spent the whole year changing the logos in their names to was it the Scorpio or
yeah.
what was it?
Oh man,
yeah.
Oh man, that was a bad time.
Yeah. So and it was, and Microsoft is guilty of hyping this stuff up too. They put the microchips in their mouths with the 4K printed on the chips, and they did these video montages talking about
Anaconda too. Anaconda.
The Anaconda. Yeah. They said the finest pixels, 4K, 60 uncompromised
4K.
The 16 flop beast, right? And so everybody is expecting this motherfucker to come out and just kill PlayStation, right? And the first game they dropped was PUBG, and it was running in 14 frames a second, right? That was their, and then they follow that shit up with like Super's Lucky's Tale, right? And so, and then you know how the rest of the generation went, right? It didn't get any better after that.
Right.
And so they discontinued the Xbox One X, and now the whole cycle is starting all over again. We've been here before. I feel like we're going in this perpetual cycle of power. By the way, shout out to Mikey Barra. He no longer works at Microsoft. He works at Blizzard.
Yeah.
But he's been saying this now for 6-7 months. He said, stop hyping up power, because that does two things. That creates unreal expectations and too much pressure on the developer to actually deliver what you're saying.
And you write checks that somebody else got to cash.
Exactly. and then for two, he said, why not just let the games speak for themselves? The games will tell you where the power are. And this is why we're using that same analogy and that same energy. We did this, Optimus. We did this back in 2017 with these guys, right?
Yeah.
16 flops was supposed to just outdo 4.2 T flops. But then we saw God of War running on the slim PS4, looking better, than anything on the 16 flop system. And here we are again in 2020, seeing something that's running on 10.3 T flops, looking better than anything that has been shown thus far on 12 T flops. Now, I'm not saying that it's always going to be that case.
Pro. And looking better in the Pro. Look at The Last of Us 2.
I agree. The Last of Us 2 looks better than anything we've seen on the X Series X yet. But at what point do we say to ourselves, okay, guys, the power narrative is not working in our favor right now. So if we just chanting power, and we're not seeing the return on investment, we probably need to change our strategy and focus on something else.
Let me get some super chat real quick, and we hit that up. Max J double eight, he says Steam releases their info, and most game on 1080p. About 30% are going 1440. Only 2% uses 4K. Most bypass ray tracing over FPS. Sheikh Capo. Thank you for the super chat. He says, if you watch the Digital Foundry video on Yakuza, they added a 1080p 60 mode because in 1440p still drops frames down to the 40s.
You know what's funny about Yakuza? I see a lot of people saying that, they don't understand why this game is not 4K 60, saying that the game is not a graphical showpiece. I don't know if these guys ever play Yakuza. Yakuza games
or Judgment.
Because the thing is, with Yakuza, you're not gonna get 4K 60. It's an open world game with a lot of detail. There's a lot of things.
The lighting, a lot of characters.
That's how you know these dudes is fraud. And they never played a Yakuza game before. They worried about if it's 4K 60. Yo, you should be. Honestly, 1440p 60. That's a marvel to me because that game, Yakuza games, is always detailed, bro. There's a lot of things to do in that game.
I agree.
So, Optimus Coach. So I seen you on Twitter, right? You talking about people telling you, because of this, you're gonna get 4K 60. And you're like, how do you know? Because the consoles can do it. If the developer doesn't do it, it's because they're lazy. How do you feel about those statements? Where you got gamers who never coded in their life telling you they're supposed to provide 4K 60, and if they don't, it's because they're lazy.
Bro, that pisses me off to no end. I get so sick of that bullshit. So first, it's like, look, man, again, like, I don't know, people think games grow on trees. Just go pick you 4 or 5 features and ship it. That is not how it works. And setting all these unrealistic expectations. J-Dub just went through his piece. I was wanting to jump in and contradict him and defend Xbox, but it wasn't a damn thing I could do because everything he said was right on accurate. This power without context is part of the problem. And honestly, I don't think it's Xbox. Well, it is Xbox. Don't get me wrong. It is Xbox, but it is not just that it's Xbox. You got a lot of influencers who are then taking the statements from Xbox and they are riling up their following. So now you got all of these millions of people expecting anything on Xbox is automatically going to shine like a star from heaven. And when that doesn't happen, they're not going to blame Xbox because they love them dearly. They're not going to blame their influencers for misleading them because they trust them with their lives. So the only person left to attack is the developers. It's your fault that you didn't deliver on the promise that all my people told me. And then that shit really pisses me off because it's not the developer's fault. It is the fault of the platform, the tools, the resources, and whatever time they had. The biggest enemy of a developer is time. And so I do not appreciate it when they attack the developers for being lazy when the developers aren't lazy.
Well, to back you up on that, right? I kind of put this out there. I said, okay, in a similar scenario, right? With, like, for example, Dirt 5. Guys want to talk about, nobody likes Dirt 5. Dirt 5 has always been trash. It's always going to be. Now, I'm one of probably the only people on the panel that ever played Dirt or care about Dirt, or because I bought every single one of them. Y'all know I'm a big racer, right? I'm Puerto Rican, know that he's the anti-racer. So him and I are the anti the magnets. We're the opposite magnets when it comes to that, right?
Kill that shit with fire.
It's so that was disheartening to hear somebody say that this game is trash. It was always trash, so it should come out looking and running like that on the world's most powerful console. And it's like, no, that's not the case you should be making. And I said, okay, you're going to blame the developer on that, right? Then you got to blame the developer when it came to Halo Infinite. But then that's when they shut up and they backed up. They didn't want to hear about that, right? Because they don't want to believe,
and all of that.
They don't want to believe that 343 is not holier than now. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So it's where the narrative goes and comes from. If it's something that they care about, they're going to defend it, and it's not going to be the developer. It'll be something else. Oh, they just need more time. Or
exactly. But that same thing is true on the other end too, Jay, because
I agree.
Naughty Dog can do no wrong.
Listen, I agree. I agree with you 1,000,000%. A million. But here's the thing, right? And I agree. It's on both sides. Both sides do it. But here's the thing, right? And I keep telling guys, when you're fighting from a losing position, it doesn't really matter. Because, yes, Naughty Dog, to me, may be one of the world's best studios ever. But to you, it can be mediocre, and that's fine. But their product and the quality of their product,
don't use me as an example on that. I'm just at all.
Yeah,
you use Mario as the example.
I'm just kind of throwing that out there, right? Like,
okay,
it kind of speaks for itself. I remember when Naughty Dog got roasted; they got tore up for crunching. You know, they people doing all these exposés. Oh, they crunch. But then when Cyberpunk came out and said that they were doing the same thing, people didn't have that energy. People was too sick. They was too tired. They was too sleepy. They didn't even want to fight that. So it always goes back to the narrative. It always goes back to the narrative, man.
Well, let me ask you.
I want to give a shout out, and let me give a shout out to Basement Radio Arcade Podcast. Thanks for the super chat. He says, big shout out to Rock and the panel. What's going on?
Well, thank you, Brad.
And Brad sees the BS too.
Yeah. I'm going to ask Cole something. Cole, why do you think there was such pushback against you when you were telling the truth? Okay, you weren't taking sides. You were trying to educate. Because I saw some tweets you put out about how you didn't even want to be contacted about it anymore because of what was happening. So do you have like a hypothesis or something on why there was such pushback against what you were saying? Even though you were talking about the tools, and even this gentleman right here from John Lineman, he's saying he suspects tools are to blame. I remember you were on Matt's Gaming's podcast, and you were talking about tools, developers' tools, and how it's going to take time to get there. Why? And do you have a hypothesis or a theory on why you feel there was so much pushback against what you were saying?
Oh, I absolutely do. And I mean, the honest answer to that question is because of everybody on this panel except for me. It's because of Jay Barry, J-Dub, and Rock. People for so long have felt defeated and crushed under the boot of y'all four that they are looking for any win, any type of victory, and right now they feel joy because on paper they have the power narrative. Okay. And if you try to be like, well, hold on, you jumping the gun a little bit with that, all they hear is you're trying to take the advantage away from Xbox. And in their minds, if you take the advantage away from Xbox, that means you're giving it to PlayStation and J-Dub and Rock and Barry and Craig, and we cannot have this, and we're going to get you for it because we don't want to hear anything that makes Xbox look lesser. Period. That's all it is.
But how is it making them look lesser if the tools that they have the necessary tools, but it's going to take them time to get everything done? Why is that negative?
Because I just told you, Negro, it's giving the advantage to you, J-Dub, J Barry, and Rob, and they want y'all to be quiet.
Now, you know the thing.
Hold on, we got a challenger, Psycho Gamer, with the super chat. He said it is the developer's fault that Dirt doesn't look next gen. you can put that game on the strongest PC and it still won't look next gen. Cut it out.
What about Halo then? What about Halo?
Yeah, what about Halo?
Hold on, Psycho. Psycho always got some flipping to say. Look here, man. I don't know what you mean by fault, because in my opinion, there's nothing wrong with the game. I think Dirt looks fine, and it is very difficult to have a short window to get a game ready for a launch of a console. That's not easy. Like, it's extremely difficult, and people gonna have all these high expectations, and you're dealing with global pandemics, and your implication cycle is that the game is somehow trash. First, I disagree that it's trash. Two, I think that they did a remarkable job, and there's nothing to complain about the game. It's just not matching the hype train, which was unrealistic in the first place. And you're right, you could put it on a 3080 and you would not get a lot, but that's true of every other game. I keep telling, like, how many times have we said it on this show? These expectations you couldn't even get with a 2080 Ti. They unrealistic, and it's nobody's fault. The fault is the public for expecting to get blood from a turnip. It doesn't exist.
Now, one thing I will say, and I'm glad. So people are saying these games don't look next gen. The whole hardware is, holding it back. And I'm like, I could have sworn people hype scaling. Like, technically, all of these games should look next gen because you just got to scale it up, right? That was what they hype code. Cole, you heard that out of more than anybody else. So now all of a sudden, these games don't look next gen because the console's holding it back. And that's what we've been saying, man. Like, notice this game didn't scale.
I hate when people bring up these games and they be like, "Oh, but this game always looked this way." So you don't want the game to be improved. Like if Uncharted always looked like Uncharted 1, would you know what I mean? Like, would you be saying Uncharted always looked this way, or God of War 3? A God of War 2018 look like God of War. You know what I mean? Like, you always going to look for the next leap with the next iteration of the game. But these Xbox guys, they always have these excuses like, "Oh, Crackdown look like Crackdown." Yeah, so what you're not expecting a leap? Like, come on, man. I hate it with a passion, man.
Yes.
So,
expectations is low.
Scaling does work, Rock. I mean, because you played on PC, you've seen PC gaming. Scaling does work, but it's just, again, it's not as easy as. People keep thinking you can pick 4 or 5 features off a tree and ship it. That is not how game development works. And scaling on PC, conceptually, it's the same thing, but it's very different than on console, because on a PC, they give you all the sliders and you can make those adjustments yourself, and you can keep playing with every setting until you reach a sweet spot that you like for your rig. For consoles, scaling means we have to do all of that for you. We're going to pick one preset for this version, then another preset for this version, and so on and so forth, because they're not going to give you the ability to play with the settings like they do on PC. So they have to make this one decision for like every group of console. And it's difficult. It does work as a concept. It's very doable. It's just hard, and it's going to take time. As we go through the generation, we're going to see more and more of this stuff that people talk about just at the beginning. There's too many unknowns, and people got to realize you can't expect this stuff out the gate. It's really that simple.
Right. Here's a question, all right? Because I want to bring this up with about
you got a bunch of super chats
about my So I got J-Dub. J-Dub out here saying Xbox is dog shit and Phil is not the guy.
Damn,
J-Dub. And the Hatsuma said, I think eventually gonna do 1440p ray tracing eventually. I think Sony wants to dominate MS both out the gate. I think this acts the conversation that PS5 can't. I think what we're seeing is a realization that both consoles are not gonna be top tier PCs. They never were meant for that, right? You're gonna get a great experience. You're gonna still get great looking games. Let's not look at Demon Souls, right? 1440p 60, and it looks gorgeous, right? So you're still gonna get gorgeous games, but like Optimus said, the expectations that podcasters, influencers, and even Microsoft, to a little bit, they hyped something, and people had an expectation, and they created that expectation, and now they want to stick with it. And now that these games are coming out, it's kind of a letdown when it shouldn't have been a letdown. People should have tempered the expectation. I mean, these are $500, $400 boxes. What do you possibly think you're gonna get out of a $500 box that includes the GPU, that includes the RAM, that includes the motherboard, that includes the damn controller, the accessories, the hard drive, the SSD soldered onto the die? All of this in one nice package for $500. What did you expect?
And the HDMI cables.
And the cables, all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
But I want to ask you this.
Wi-Fi 6, Bluetooth.
Only one console. One console has Wi-Fi 6.
Right.
Yo, you know what I'm noticing? Since you put up that screenshot, Puerto Rico, I went to Xbox.com. I'm looking up the Series X, and I'm noticing something that is missing from the little promo here. Was the Series X, man. They got true 4K. They got up to 120 frames a second. They got 8K HDR, Xbox Velocity architecture. But ray tracing is not there.
So Optimus, if you could look at my screen real quick.
Yeah, I see it. Yeah. I'm looking at it the whole time.
So Digital Thunder came out. Xbox at this point still doesn't have ray tracing, right? Yeah. And I think this goes into your conversation. What tools, what SDKs, development kits. So right now, the dev tools, the developers can't add ray tracing, right? So what do you think about that as far as what Microsoft... I mean, this is all opinion. I'm not asking you to provide a fact, just educational opinion. If you're this close to launch and developers still can't use ray tracing, yet it's something that you're advertising so much, how do you feel about that, both from a developer perspective and from a consumer? Since you could see both sides of the fence. Like Microsoft's out there, ray tracing, 4K, yada, yada, yada. But now behind the scenes, none of the developers can actually do ray tracing yet because possibly the dev tools aren't ready. How do you see that? Well, like, what's your opinion on that? At this stage, especially in October, it's October 13th right now.
Well, I'm gonna speak from the developer point of view because it's the easiest. So for a couple of things. So one misconception that there's only like one form of ray tracing. Mm-hmm. There are multiple types of ray tracing, and ray tracing can be used for many things. I won't go into the details, but like reflections is only one form of ray tracing. Okay. And so it is, for me as a developer, I would 100% expect this type of thing because over the years I will have learned that is there just going to be hiccups when it comes to technology. I don't expect it to continue, but I certainly would not be surprised that something like ray tracing, especially with how processor intensive it is, I wouldn't be surprised at all that we're still ironing out some kinks in the ray tracing. Okay. As an alternative, then I could do software ray tracing that's not hardware accelerated if it was really integral to my vision, or I could like work with Microsoft to say, okay, well, maybe could we get a lower resolution form of it, whatever.
Oh, you can't bring up software ray tracing code. You can't bring up that. Not to the Xbox guys.
Yeah, they don't like that either.
Yeah, they don't like software.
There's nothing you don't like or not like. It's just technical reality.
I'm just telling you. Because originally PlayStation 5, PlayStation 5 was originally only doing software ray tracing, and that's not good enough. That's not next gen.
Oh,
I'm not lying. We're not lying, bro.
Y'all see all of this smoke, and I only see like a fraction of all this smoke.
Oh my God, I'm telling you. So let me ask you this: what if, all right? So you're a third-party developer, and your PlayStation 5, whatever tools they gave you, you can do hardware ray tracing, so your games can implement it. But the Xbox Series X version, you can't, because right now Microsoft hasn't given you the tools, and it's October 13th. Like, how critical is having the ability to do ray tracing at this stage, especially if one company is doing it and giving you the tools for their product, but the other one hasn't? Like, can ray tracing be implemented like in a day or two? Like if you were a developer, right? Like, how nervous would you be today?
Can I add on to that question, P-Rock? Because there was something that Mark Cerny said in his breakdown where he says that they went with the 36 CU die for the GPU rather than the bigger one, because developers can access all of that GPU much quicker than them working on something that's like
trying to fill up 52 CUs.
Yeah, is that accurate code as well? That's the answer.
So take into all of that. So right now you're like the lead developer. You work for a big AAA third party. Sony's toolkits, you can do hardware ray tracing, but right now Microsoft SDKs for whatever reason, you can't do it yet. Maybe they haven't updated it, whatever. Or like you said, they haven't figured it out. But it's October 13th, and your game comes out November 10th. How nervous are you right now? The fact that only one console you got ray tracing, but the other one you don't. Like,
so here's what typically happens in that, and this is actually a real life scenario. Yeah. This is a 100% real life scenario. This stuff happens not necessarily with ray tracing, but just different technologies in general. So first and foremost, this is a publisher decision, not the developer decision at all. All right. This is in the hands of the publisher.
Because they're the money, bean counters.
Yeah, like you said earlier, the publisher is going to want parity.
Yes.
They are not going to want to make one system look like they're favoring it over the other. So they have two choices. They will either release them both without ray tracing, or they will release the one with the ray tracing, but go all out blitz with ray tracing coming soon, or et cetera, like
DMC5.
Like Capcom, like what Capcom did.
Oh, yeah, good example. Yeah, I'm glad y'all brought that up. Exactly, like that. That's what will happen. So, but they are never going to want to favor one over the other. They're not going to want to show favoritism. They're going to do everything they can to keep balance and parity.
Because it's not in their best interest. Because at the end of the day, it's about their game. They don't want their game to look bad. They don't want their game. Shout out to Jaguar 32X. Wow, I haven't heard about that console in a minute. They announced Project Scarlet 2018, and they still couldn't get their house in order for the next gen after this gen. Phil is not the guy.
Yo, that's a good point.
Xbox was the first platform not only to show their platform, not only to show a trailer of a game running on it, but they were the first one to tout world's most powerful console, the T-flops, and the ray tracing, right? And it's funny, none of the games that they've showed thus far are at this point are capable of having ray tracing on their platform. All the Sony's got ray tracing. So that's
J-Dub, there's an issue. There's an issue because Halo, if it were to launch this holiday,
was not going to have ray tracing with it.
It wasn't going to have ray tracing.
On their first party, the biggest game, the game that was supposed to showcase the 12 T-flops, was going to launch without ray tracing. That is, something's wrong.
Phil did try to damage control talking about ray tracing is spotty. He made a general statement.
You see what y'all doing now? This is why people don't want to just accept realistic expectations, because they want to shut y'all up so bad. It is perfectly normal for during the development cycle for this type of stuff to happen. You don't never know what it will be, but it's normal. And y'all got to stop with the field slander, because, well, I guess I got some stuff to talk about tomorrow night. But at the end of the day, Microsoft is, in my opinion, this is not factual stuff, this is my opinion. When I look at what they're doing now versus how they started in 2013, in my opinion, Microsoft has learned from their mistakes and they are correcting their mistakes. My problem isn't with Microsoft proper. My problem is with the Xbox community, because I think the Xbox itself, like the real Xbox fan community, I think is great. But the Xbox themselves, they are the one that's causing all of the trouble and helping set these unrealistic expectations and then attacking all of these developers. I you are right, ray tracing isn't there. Like, all of that stuff is true. But those are just normal woes of software engineering. That stuff happens.
Code. I think Xbox is to blame too, because look at this. Let me paint the picture for a second, right? You saying that Xbox is trying to right their wrongs and they're doing a good job doing it, but their wrong is delivering games. These guys have been propping up buying studios for like 3 years. 2 years ago, EXO, all that studios, this and that.
Jabbar, if it takes 3 to 5 years to produce a game, and in case of Naughty Dog, 7, but let's just say it takes 3 to 5 years to make a game. If Microsoft bought a studio 3 years ago, and it takes 3 to 5 years, and they started the same day that Microsoft bought them, it's going to take between now and 2 years from now for those games to come to fruition. You can't build a game in 1 or 2 years.
I get that, but I'm saying that there's an issue going on there in that development studio for that Microsoft, because how are you going to launch you a console with no first-party games?
That's, you know, see, when you got first-party Microsoft, you got access to a complete lineup of all their tools and everything, right? Because you are the company. You're owned by the company. So one would think, right? I've seen it on the Sony side. I've seen like Kojima and Naughty Dog and other in-house developers are able to go and share technology and stuff like that and comment on other. That synergy is there between all the Sony studio. That's why the bulk of their games always come out fucking amazing or looking amazing and everything else, right? But then you got Halo. Supposedly rumored, they spent $500 million on this game. Built a brand new ground up engine for the X Series, next generation, and all the bells and whistles that we were told, right? And I'm not going to just blame the Xbox. I'm going to blame Microsoft themselves, because they put this system and they put these terms up on the pedestal. They come out there with the microchips in their mouths talking about it eats monsters for breakfast and all of this stuff. You know what I'm saying?
Lisa Sue said that to me.
Hook 'em.
I'm just saying, they said that, right? So, yes, you can blame the Xbox for, keep falling into the same trap for 7 years, and they about to do it another 7 years. But eventually, you got to blame the company for selling wolf tickets without delivering, because they've been hyping.
Can I respond to this?
Go ahead.
To this slander?
Go ahead.
Yeah.
So first, all right. So let's just
hold
say,
up before you move on. Let me address the super chat, please. Flaffy 1101. He said, "Insomniac got more games shipped than Xbox itself." Ooh. Ouch. Damn.
Hey, before you move on, I got to jump on here because I'm on tomorrow on a COVID unit, so I got to get some sleep. So, but yeah, I'll be listening to you, especially when you all get to this 9.6 thing, because I'm going to be rolling. Okay.
I'm curious about that too. I don't know if it's real or not, but
yeah, because I already tweeted it and people are mad. So that's all I can say. So, all right then, guys. Appreciate it. Code, always a pleasure. And I didn't get a chance to ask you.
Invite, man. I never got my invite, Craig. I see how it is.
No, Thursday. I'm going to, if you're available Thursday, I'm going to be podcasting. So, if you know where the 52 CUs are, you're more than welcome to jump on anytime. So, all right, bro. All right, man. Hey, guys. Thanks for the invite. All right, shout out to you. Shout out to the chat. Peace.
So, J-Dub, let me ask you. If you a company and say you made a mistake, say you advertising a feature that you know you're not going to have, and so all you can do is update your marketing. You can start saying, okay, well, yeah, ray tracing is a little spotty, whatever it is, and you starting to try to change the message. But if your rabid fans are running without paying attention to what you're saying, and they're keeping it going when you trying to reset expectations, what more can they do? And I'm not saying Microsoft don't have no blame. I'm saying 90% of the blame is the fan base. Microsoft is trying to be transparent. They are trying to back off of that a little bit, but ain't nobody listening until the games come out and they mad.
Yeah. Okay, I'll give you that. That as well. I'll give you that. But you again, I can't get off of the mere fact, right? For 7 straight years, we've been told one thing and something different has happened.
That's true. That's true. I'm not going to try to damage control that. That is 100% true.
Yeah. And so I feel like, right, once you do that cycle, this generation, let's face it, people can say what they want. This generation went rather bad for Microsoft. This generation went just bad. It went left for Microsoft. And but I really don't. I'm not going to let them off that easy, because you know what? Last generation, the generation went left for Sony, and they were able, within that 6-7 years, they were able to fix their mistakes and come back roaring to be able to still win the generation. Nintendo Switch this generation started They fumbled with the Wii U, and it was a failure. They stopped it. They said, we're going to go ahead and release another console and fix our errors. They did it, and they came roaring back within 2 years to surpass Xbox, right? And Microsoft, instead of them saying, you know what, we made a mistake, we're going to come running, we're going to double down and fix our mistake, they just kind of tucked tail and ran into a whole different direction. They created a whole nother lane instead of fixing. To me, right? And that's opinionated. That's totally my opinion. Nobody else said it. Just me.
Based on the current set of standards, you are 100% correct.
And so I feel like, okay, now I'll get it, right? The new generation, okay, all is forgiven. All is forgiven. We'll start over. We'll, they could easily start this generation and do amazing and knock Sony out the water, right? They could easily do that. But they're already starting on such a low note because they're ending the generation on such a low note with pretty much no games. And then they're starting to make the marketing mistakes and some of the other mistakes with the mind share of they got all this bad publicity out now that they're not going to have any first party games. And even the multiplats running on the systems are looking mid. And so they already went on a tangent with the 12 T-flops, the most power, and that people are not seeing that. And so now when you see those stats come out with the polls showing 82% of gamers pre-order the PS5, that stuff is there's some truth to that. There's some truth to a lot of this stuff because gamers look and they like the nice stuff. They like the flashy graphics. They like all of that stuff. And Sony is showing you the glitz and the glamour, and Microsoft is not showing you that. They're showing you the great services. Game Pass is awesome. They're showing you, how much of a value this system is and how consumer friendly it is. But most gamers, that stuff, they want the glitz and the glamour. They're going to be looking at Spider-Man. They're going to be looking at, Spider-Man. That's what they're going to be. That's what they want to see. Mm-hmm. And so,
I'll be honest with you. I'm so confused with the Xbox because this is the first time in any generation, all the 36 years I've been alive, that I've seen people or a company hype the backwards compatible games before the new games. I have never seen this type of marketing ever, where you go and give these influencers and these gaming industry writers and bloggers and all that stuff, and you tell them to talk about backwards compatibility before they talk about new games. Well, I've never seen this in my life.
And Jabari, and to your point, because they did that, Sony was able to sit on their hands and shut up and waited to the right time and outshine their backwards compatibility. They say, guess what? Every single game that you had this generation is playable except 10. They were able to come out and get the biggest prize out of that, right? They got a whole week of mind share because they waited to the last minute and they didn't even focus on it. They just basically tweeted it out. Hey, by the way, over 4,000 games, only 10 games from this generation will not be playable on the PlayStation 5. And those developers came out and said, we don't like that. We're going to fix those games, so it is going to work on the PS5.
And so the thing is, that was a secondary thing. The first time they showed you a showcase of new PlayStation 5 games.
Next-gen games. I just don't understand. Showcase with new games. They just not ready yet.
Yeah. Optimus, let me ask you a question. Right? So I always been a big proponent of exclusive when it comes to first party and the consoles, right? Like I didn't like Microsoft's approach of them going multi-plat day one with PC, right? I didn't like that approach, and I'm kind of nervous about Sony going to the same way. But it's mostly because of a perception. So maybe you can help me clear this out. I always felt that when a first party provider creates a console, right, and they have their software developers, they have their own studios, right? That it's that combination of them making their own hardware and having their own developers specifically for that hardware. They're the ones responsible to bring out the best of what that console can do, not EA or Ubisoft or anybody else. So whatever promise this console or any console that they make can do, they're the ones that ultimately have to show it, because EA doesn't have to show it. Ubisoft, Capcom, they have no responsibility in that because they're not doing advertising. Like you said, the developers of Dirt never said 4K 120. That was Xbox and Xbox Vanguard. They never said themselves, our game runs at 4K, 120 frames per second. They never advertised that, right? And they don't have that because that is not their console. They didn't build it, right? So let me ask you this. With that, I ask you this, right? Maybe my perception is this. If you have a development studio, you know, let's say all things equal, same budget, you know, big budget company, big AAA, you got the best tools and all that. But if you have one developer studio that's just focusing on one console, that you were there from the very start, from the moment they put it as a sketch in concept to final development, hell, you even part of the development, you know, the SDK, the growth of the development tool. You were there from cradle to grave. From the moment it was a piece of paper, from the moment somebody mentioned, let's make the PS5, to the day it's finally created and you have all the development toolkits, right? Or versus a multi-plat studio that has to make games for the PS5, has to make games for PC, has to make games for Xbox Series X, have to make games for PS4, have to make games for Xbox One, maybe put it on Switch, simply because it's all about the money. Do you see that the exclusive studio has an advantage in making the best games and getting the best performance as compared to a third-party studio? Or are my perceptions off on that one?
No, bro, you're 100% correct. The first-party studio will have an amazing advantage over everyone else because, number one, they have the earliest access to the technology, and they're in the best position to give feedback when they need changes or things aren't working correctly, so that the platform holder, in this case Xbox, could make whatever changes to the API that's necessary. And then the same thing with Sony on the other end. Their developers will work closely with the engineers, to the hardware engineers, to make sure that, hey, these are the APIs we need, and whatever low-level API guys they got, hey, here's what we need this to do, so on and so forth. They are definitely in the best position to maximize the hardware the soonest. 100%.
Yeah, and go ahead.
No, go ahead, bro.
No, just go finish, please.
Well, because we're going to go in rumor territory because, I mean, I can tell you what I heard. I believe it, but, you know, I can't really say that it's true.
Okay.
But I can certainly tell you I believe it. But I heard from multiple people that I mess with that. So, of course, Microsoft planned to have a first-party title, and they plan to have, like, all the bells and whistles on Halo. Mm-hmm. But from what I heard, there was an internal dispute because the technical team was trying to get the management to understand how difficult it is to build two versions of this game, one to take advantage of the new hardware, one to still be playable on the old hardware, when this game has a multiplayer and a co-op mode, and these players are going to have to play together. And the difficulty it is in making sure that everything was right, even if you tried to max out the new hardware, but being able to play with the people in the old hardware and just like, this is not as easy as you think. And the management's response was to just throw more money at it. And to throw, when I say management, I don't mean Microsoft. I mean, within 343, you got your managers and then the people that are in the trenches. Yeah. And from what I understood, the people in the trenches were like, hey, this is like way more difficult than you think. And management was like, well, we'll just get more people. There's this concept in software called the Mythical Man Month, which basically means if you add more programmers to a late project, you make it later. And so they added people. They spent all this money.
Technically, right? Because what if you don't have the right skill guys? Like, just because you have more people doesn't mean
exactly.
You improved your manpower.
It just ends up being a big mess.
Yeah.
Right. So from what I understand, that's exactly what happened. And so from what I heard, man, like it was like check-ins and commits that was like 2 and 3 weeks behind, which basically means I've worked on a piece of functionality. It's ready, but I can't even get my new feature added to the main code base because I'm in line behind like 10 other features and all these merge conflicts and just all this different stuff. So at the end of the day, adding all of these people only made it worse. From what I'm hearing, again, I can't say this is true. And so Microsoft did attempt to have their first party, but somebody within that first party would not accept how difficult this challenge was. And what I've heard recently is that they're going with two separate teams, one focusing on the new experience, one focusing on the old hardware, and that they are working to get this thing out the door. But they fully intended to have a showstopper title for the launch. They just mismanaged it.
Hey, shout out to Ash and Luca. She said, "What up, my brother? Here to drop some support, fam. Heart. Thank you so much. She's my sister from another mister. Check out her podcast, The Scumcast, every Saturday. Shout out to Luca. So this is why I've always been a big advocate for exclusive. People confuse my statement for like, oh, why are you trying to gatekeep? I'm like, it has nothing to do with gatekeep, right? But if I'm going to buy a dedicated console from a company and they have their own developers, my expectation is for those developers to focus on this console and bring on its very best. I don't care for these guys to make games on PC because why are you focusing on a platform that people like? You working for a company where people are actually giving you more money because they're trying to buy a specific device. So your devoted attention should be that device to satisfy the consumer who's buying from you. And that's always been my thing, right? I never try to look at any of these consoles and rely on third party because, like I said, and like we already talked in this podcast, third party's interest is to sell their games. It's not to sell consoles. It's to sell their games. Sure, they're gonna advertise, show some great graphics, but at the end of the day, as long as their game sells, that's all that matters to them. They're not responsible for anything else. Nothing else. They're not responsible for advertisement for Xbox or PlayStation, right? But Naughty Dog, they're responsible to make PlayStation look at its best. That's their responsibility. You are a Sony first-party studio. Therefore, you make Sony's first-party platform, a.k.a. PlayStation, look its best. I don't expect that from EA. I expect that from Naughty Dog. I don't expect Ubisoft to have a great open world third party at its best. It could be good. I expect it to be good, but I don't expect it to be at its best. I expect Guerrilla to make it at its best. Because who else are you accounting for? You see? And that's the whole thing with exclusives, right? So when Microsoft made this decision to go multi-plat, I'm like, I'm not trying to, granted, I joke about it on Twitter, but the reality is Microsoft made a decision to take first-party devs, and they are now multi-plat devs. They have to develop for multiple platforms. In fact, recently I found out that they exchanged their Xbox development kits, and now they have what's called general development kits. Why is it general? Because that's what they have to do. They have to. In reality, barring PlayStation and Nintendo, they're really no different than EA at this point. They're only missing two platforms to fully be like EA. They're only missing making games on PlayStation and Nintendo. But other than that, they're pretty much like
wait. So to be fair, Porter Rock, it has been proven, right, that Microsoft did approach Nintendo and Sony to put Halo and Gears on their franchise, on their boxes, and they turned them down. Am I correct, my brother?
No. I don't think they approached them. I think the bean counters thought of their idea.
We kind of had this. Obviously, I can go dig up the conversation.
But I think the bean counters mentioned it. But I remember the developer 343 said that at no point did anyone approach them talking about putting Halo on any other platform. So I don't know if it was like a bean counter conversation. Yeah. But ultimately, when you think about it, they're making games on PC. They're making games on their Xbox consoles, right? They pretty much have to worry about multi-platform development, right? So they're multi-platform gamers, especially with. I could maybe understand if the PC version comes out a year later because they want to focus on the console first, make sure it's pristine, and then they port the game over to PC and worry about the kinks later on that one. But no, it's both games day and date on both platforms. So can you talk about that a little bit?
Here's the thing. Yep, and I posted this on Twitter a while ago, and we talked about it with a Hard 8 on Any Given Sunday. So if you pay attention, and I'll post it again on Twitter later tonight if I remember. Okay. Microsoft Studios, part of their charter is to build games for any Windows 10 device. And the way you're looking at it is not the way that they look at it. Okay. The way they look at it is Windows 10 is a Microsoft product, and they need to build games for Windows 10 the device is irrelevant. And while you're focusing on the console itself, because that's the traditional model, their mantra, again, it's part of their charter. They build games for Windows 10 devices, of which the PC is one. Yeah. And so their focus is shifting. Yeah, Xbox is a platform, not a device.
Okay.
Where y'all go? We still here?
Yeah, I hear you. Is it like cut out real quick?
I'm still here.
They got quiet.
Everything cut out real quick. I'm like,
I got kicked earlier, so I was like, what the hell? I thought I was...
All that Game Pass slander that caught up with you.
Yeah, that's it. So go ahead, finish what you're saying.
So basically, when it comes, and this is part of what I want to talk about tomorrow too, but like they just sort of had to change the game, very similar to what stuff that you said earlier about like traditionally this and like counting consoles and devices sold, and they sort of had to redirect and look at what is the number one job of Phil Spencer, the number one job of Jim Ryan is to make money for their owners. And that's true. For Microsoft,
for every company.
And for Phil Spencer, the traditional way of making money in console gaming was not working to their advantage. So they had to put all their wits together and come up with another way. And Microsoft at large, that little money they get from Xbox, they can put that in a penny jar somewhere. They are $1 trillion company. And Phil had to demonstrate the worth of the Xbox division to Microsoft at large. And so they started making these changes to make it, Xbox is more about Windows 10, not about the device. Like none of that stuff was accidental, and they did what they had to do to keep the interest in the division alive and to get the support so that now they cook and they starting to invest in talent. Like you said, Rock, like they have demonstrated that they serious about acquiring talent, content, like they not stopping. Yeah. It's going to take a while for this to come to fruition. And if they do get Take-Two, it's exactly going to be like you said, it's going to be crying in the streets. But the point is, though, like you said, they serious. That's the key, that they are serious. But they had to change the model because their traditional model, they was getting killed, and that was unsustainable for them.
Now let me ask you this.
Makes sense.
Yeah. Looking at how Microsoft thinks, do you think they could have done something a little bit better, a little bit different, to at least inspire a bit more confidence? Or maybe do you think that they going so far exactly the way they should, and there's really nothing they could have done, or do you think they could have made some better decisions somehow?
I think 100% of every I've been developing software for over 30 years, and there's always something that you could have done better or different. I think that given what they know now, if they could go back, they would certainly do some things different. I don't think they would put all their eggs in the Halo basket. And I certainly think that they would have listened more to the people in the trenches instead of thinking we can just throw as much money at it as we want to bring in talent and help or whatever. I certainly think that they wouldn't have done that. And I think they would have probably been a little more clear in their messaging, not as aspirational, but more practical about like what you can expect going forward. I don't think Aaron Greenberg should have ever said 4K 60 is the standard. I think that was a big mistake.
I'll tell you who they should have listened to.
Especially when you don't make games. Like if you don't make games, don't make any comments on why you think gaming should be.
Yeah.
I'll tell you who they should listen to. The PlayStation Nation, because one thing the PlayStation Nation been telling everybody is that this Xbox Series X is hot garbage. Now you got developers coming out saying that, I don't know about this bullshit because nobody want to develop.
This dude
came out and he slapped that Xbox Series X up. He said that
what did he say?
He said that this is why a lot of developers they love to develop for consoles, because you got to develop for one hardware instead of PC, because now they have all these configurations they got to develop for. True. And now they adding this Series S to it. They don't like that. They don't like that at all.
Oh yeah, you don't have to show me that. I definitely believe they said that.
Yeah. Hey, it's a great thing, Optimus. Do you think Series S was a good idea? Do you think that was a good idea for Microsoft to do, creating the Series S?
Oh my God!
Just your opinion, just an opinion, not facts. It's just opinion.
So yes, I think it was a good idea. But given that they also have to support PC, which is a Windows 10 device anyway, yes, I think it was a good idea, because no matter what, they're going to have to support the minimum spec PC, and the Series S is way better than a minimum spec PC. So I think that was a good little $300 machine, hopefully to entice casuals who mainly care about price, to help get the Xbox brand in more homes. I think it was a smart business decision, but as a gamer and as a developer, no, I wouldn't want to deal with it at all. But I understand why they did it.
I'll be honest, I don't think it was a good idea at all. Right?
Why not?
Because I'm an advocate of consumer price, and I know consumers, casuals buy a cheaper console, but they buy a cheaper good console. They don't just simply buy a cheaper console because it's... I'm not. I'll give you a perfect example. The GameCube launched at $199. It was more expensive than the PS2. But we saw how that turned out. So it's not just cheaper price. It's the casuals want the popping console, and then they wait for that console to drop in price. They don't want to buy a cheap console, and it's not the console that people are playing, or that has the best games, or the most popular games, or whatever, or the ones that their friends are buying. It doesn't matter if it's cheap. It's like the GameCube. GameCube was $199, and hardly anyone bought it because everybody wanted a PlayStation 2. That was the popping console. That was the console with Grand Theft Auto. That was a console, with Metal Gear Solid, Final Fantasy. We want that one. They'll pay the extra money for that one. You understand what I'm saying? I'll give you a perfect example. The Xbox One S was cheaper than the Switch. Switch launched at $299. By that point, you could get an Xbox One X at $250, and during Black Friday, you could get an Xbox One S for $199. But what did most people buy? They wanted the Switch. They wanted portable gaming. They wanted Zelda. They'll pay that extra $100 over, the Xbox One X, even though it had a 4K Blu-ray player, upscale 4K. None of that mattered. The Switch is out. It's what's popping. It's what has the games. I could play on the go. I'm gonna pay the extra $100. Boom. And that's what people did, right? The Xbox One S, what's really going to be a selling point, right? You ain't got first party, so you ain't got the popping first party, right? And if you did, it's going to look terrible because we already see how it's going to look, right? No one's really gonna hype the Xbox One X to make people want to get it. That's the main thing. You're not going to get momentum out in the streets or in the advertisements or in the market, right? People are not going to be out there. You mean the Series S? Yeah, the Series S. Yeah, the Series S. People are not going to be out there adamantly, right? Be like, ooh, the Series S is dope. No one's really going to do that. I'm being serious. No one's really going to do that.
Microsoft has a marketing campaign aimed at it. Like, it's up to them to do it.
It's going to, I agree, right?
You know what's the trouble with the Series X? You know what's going to be the trouble?
What also helps is the stuff you see in a store, right? Like, when you go to Best Buy and you see Spider-Man, you're like, oh, shit, what's that? Oh, that's PlayStation. Cool, right? And then when you see, an Xbox game and it's dope, you're like, oh, cool, I want to see that. And then they'll be like, oh, we got 2 versions. And you're like, oh, well, what version? We got the S and the X. What version does it look like that? Oh, that's the X. What about the Series S? Oh, yeah, it don't look like that, dog. How does it look like? And then they show it, and you're like, oh, hell nah. They'll be like, that shit looks no different. Hell, that shit looks worse than my One X. Now, granted,
okay,
the Series S does the better
they're not even gonna promote the Series S version because
the Series S does the frames, like 120 frames, 60 frames locked. But I'm gonna tell people, frames don't sell consoles. It just doesn't. Most console gamers don't even know what a frame per second is. They just don't. It just doesn't. Like it's hard to sell frame rate to a console gamer because they just want to see what's on the screen.
They like the glitz and glamour.
Yo, it's really hard to sell frame rate for a console. That's why a lot of developers still go with 30 if they could get the bells and whistles because graphics sells, and most console gamers are cool with that. It's only a niche hardcore that really want frame rate.
Yep. Hey, you know what's the issue with the Series S is that just because of this generation, I'm inclined to believe that they are going to have like another iteration, like a pro version of these consoles. And what if they do have that? You know what I mean? Like Series S, that's going to be another console.
Ain't no need for this useless speculation before the generation ever starts.
I'm just looking at the history, though. Code. I'm looking at the history. I'm looking at the history. They introduced it this gen.
Hold on, J Bar. You need to be quiet because you own some trash, man. J Dub, you buy consoles for a lot of people. You help people in the community. What are your thoughts on like someone that's a little more casual getting an S over an X? Like, what do you see? If you buying a console for somebody, you would rather get them the X than the S?
They're gonna meld that shit right back to him. You cheap bastard!
Wow. Here's my thought though, right? On the S. To tell you the truth, a person would do better to keep their Xbox One X.
Yep.
Because think about it. You already got dirt playing at what 900p. You like,
but you missing the drive speed and the drive technology.
But listen, here's the thing about it though, right? We've been playing on mechanical hard drives since the 2-3 generations, right? Yeah. I'm just saying for a long time now, right? Until November the 12th and November the 10th happened, unless you play on PC, you've never played a console, so you don't miss what you never had. You still gonna think about it. You're still gonna be able to get a great experience out of your Xbox One X because all them games still gonna be on the Xbox One X, just like it is on the S and the Slim. And the downside as well is that it's only a 500 gigabyte hard drive as well, and and come to find out, it's like the OS takes up like 200 gigs.
I regret asking you because you are just like Jay Moore.
No, I'm just saying like news. That's not really. I'm not really upgrade. I wouldn't feel like I'm upgrading somebody by doing that. I would rather to give out the Xbox Series X. I wish I could tell you
what happened to me and my guy Matthew on PlayStation. So we was playing Monster Hunter World and we was having a blast, and he had a SSD in his PS5, and I hadn't put one in mine yet. I'm sorry, PS4. I'm sorry. Yeah. In his Pro, he had put an SSD. In my Pro, I hadn't put one. I just had the regular drive. So we playing Monster Hunter World. So we loading in, and we on party chat, and I'm like, what's all that noise? And he fighting monsters and shit and like getting experience. And then like 40 seconds later, here I come. And that is the reason why I put an SSD in my Pro, is because I'm not just gonna be sitting here looking at this loading screen while he all fighting and shit. So with that, losing something. If they playing Madden, if they playing FIFA, Call of Duty, everybody else in the lobby, and they all just made a great point.
Your team's already dead when you can load up. You're like,
no, check this out, Puerto Rock. Cole just made an excellent point. You know why? Because on all of these cross-platform games, the gamers on PS5 will already be loaded and playing games while the Xbox Series X and the Xbox Series S is loaded. Because their load times take 12, 15, 20 seconds, where the PS5 games have been loaded up like 1 second or instantaneous.
Well, we can't say that, Jay. You got to compare the same game under the same condition.
All right.
Well, I'm saying this as my own opinion.
Okay, they're fair enough.
Guys, fair enough. If we're gonna, again, I already told them Xbox is the world's most powerful console, but I also like to say that the PlayStation 5 is the world's fastest console. Because if we're using the paper specs, they're accurate, right? And then if I'm using the paper spec, I'm accurate because the PS5 hard drive is 3 times as fast as the X series. Now again, this is only for the fanboys, right? This is only to piss them off and make them go crazy.
Hey, so Mac City Entertainment. He says J-Dub full of cap. Dirt 5 is going to be on the PS5 and every other console. You ponies bash a dev that works for you. Y'all looking bad out here. All right, Mac, we said a disclaimer in the beginning of the podcast. We said this is not about the developer. We're not making fun of them. We're not even making fun of the game itself. We feel the game is fine. We're not even bashing the console, technically. What we are going after is dudes that said next-gen consoles are native 4K 60 with ray tracing. And since PS5,
we discussing the false promises.
Since PS5 is not that, it's RDNA 1, no hardware ray tracing, software, all this nonsense. PS5 is boosted, they're overclocked, caught off guard. Xbox is the one, no performance mode needed for Xbox Series X. That's what we're talking about. We're not talking about the game or the developers. We're talking about the promise Xbox YouTubers said, Xbox influencers said, and to a little bit, Microsoft themselves. We just want to know why the game is not native 4K 60 locked with ray tracing. That's it.
Yeah, because the Greenberg said 4K 60 is the standard for Series X. I've seen it.
He said it. That's what this is about. Everybody, y'all trying to change the narrative as if we're making fun of developers. No. Don't be slick. We're talking to you guys. You told us native 4K when y'all saw, the Spider-Man was gonna be 4K or 60. Y'all made it a big deal. Yeah, it's a 1440p machine again. Okay, we just want the same energy.
What does that mean? 4K/60. What does it mean?
Yeah. We had to write a whole paper on the slash English language. I had to do shout out to what's his name? Violent.
I remember that part.
Was it Violent? Violent FC Violent. Shout out to my man. He's like, English is my second language. And while I was in university, the slash meant this. I'm like, we really gonna talk about university education over a slash? Like, that's how Optimus. This is how far they go. I'm telling you.
I remember that. I've seen that one.
Yeah, so that's
what is it? Is it 60, 4K? Yeah, the slash meant 4K or 60. I'm like, stop this.
Hey, yo, the Xbox go announce the game 4K/60. They're like, yeah, see? 4K.
These dudes bringing out their bachelors for over a slash because of a tweet Insomniac did. So that's all we want to know. We're not bashing the developers. Y'all said native 4K 60 locked with ray tracing.
Facts.
But this dude is mad late to the podcast because we already made the disclaimer from the beginning of the show. But you out here super chatting. He just came
in last minute. My man Mac City super chat again said that is not what I saw on Twitter yesterday. J-Dub had the ponies going crazy. He never mentioned none of that. We have to keep that same energy. Hey, I'm telling you, that is what we're doing. Xbox gamers. Here, you know what? Hold up. Look at my screen. I'm gonna put this screen.
You know what it is too. To me personally, Mac, I don't think Dirt 5
look at the screen,
great.
Max. I'm not gonna make it. Hey, hold up. Mac, look at the screen. Dirt 5, 4K 120 confirmed. This right there. Where is it? I need answers. Man. I need answers to this. This is Tim Dog. He is your leader, so help me out.
Keep the same energy.
This is what we're talking about.
I think Tim Dog, he made a mistake. He owned it and then move on. That's all.
But that's all we want. We just want
drama. You know what's funny though? Tim Dog would own a mistake and say, "All right, I was wrong."
Shout out to Tim Dog, man. I love that.
But these guys that follow him, they won't.
That's true. Yeah. That is true. You right on that, Jay Barry. They're the ones that be coming at me talking about. You switch sides. Like, what are you talking about?
All I'm saying is this. If Horizon Zero Dawn comes out native 4K 30 with full ray tracing, are we going to bash the game, Mac? That's all I want to know. Are we done with the... That's all I want to know.
Who is we?
P-Rock.
No.
You know...
I just want to know.
Are we
going to let the game live?
You know they will. They ready for that.
Right now, don't bash developers. So, is Gorilla safe? Is Gorilla safe? Is Gorilla free from being bashed too? That's all I want to know.
Yo, these dudes were bashing. They was bashing bashing options that developers are giving you with modes. You know, for the PS5 announcements, like performance mode, graphical mode. They were bashing that. But the 2 games that they've been previewing for Xbox, they got 3 modes in these motherfuckers. You know what I mean? It's just ridiculousness over there in that Xbox camp, man. I'm sorry.
Look here, man. I keep clarifying the Xbox community is wonderful. Y'all talking about these extremists, and you cannot use them as the example.
Oh, we're gonna use them.
That
oh
simple.
Man, that's the beauty about console war. We could use whatever we want.
yeah. I mean, that's true. I'm going after the fanboys more so, but you know,
you a fanboy. What you talking about? You going after the fanboys? You are a fan.
No. I am a fanboy. That's why I'm going after the Xbox fanboy.
Okay. My fault, player.
Oh yeah, I would never deny that. I'm not a secret neutral or nothing like that. You know what I mean? I tell you how it is.
First say he ain't a fake neutral. We don't do fake neutrality.
Yeah.
We ain't neutral.
I mean, like, let's take a look at this. Are we gonna keep doing this?
Wow.
Or are we done with this? Are we done with this? If we're done with this, then I'm good. If we're done with this, and hey, you will never hear me talk shit again. I just need to know, are we done with this?
Where's the muscles? Oh my God.
Dude said, where are the muscles?
Yeah.
That's all I'm asking, Mac. Are we good? I just need to know, are we good?
Yeah.
Is there truth? You know, can we have the olive branch? That's all I need to know, Mac. That's all. Are we good now?
Mac, you on your own with this one, player. You on your own with this one.
My stomach done. Yo, they said,
are we good, Mac? Are we in a circle for muscles?
This proves the great point. And Optimus, I want you to listen to this thoroughly, okay, brother?
All right, player.
These guys, right? When it comes to PlayStation games, they pull out their magnifying glass.
God,
I mean, they get scientific. They become Digital Foundry. They will find every flaw, every jagged edge, right? But when they get their games, they put that Bird Box blindfold over, and they act like they don't see Battletoads or Crackdown or Bleeding Edge or the Falconeer or none of that, right? And so this is why we do what we do. This is why we tease these guys and keep the receipts and show the hypocrisy and hand out L's. That's all. This is why.
All right, Jared. Now I'll listen to you. Now I want you to listen to me.
Let me do this for Mac. One more thing for Mac. Mac, shout out to Mac. He said, I don't cap for no specs. I'm not a guy that gets caught up in all that. I don't know enough. I'm a gamer. I only play everything, but I love Xbox. And I could respect that. That's cool. That's what's up, man. As long as you don't be circling Spider-Man's feet and shit, we good. You know what I'm saying?
Nah.
Shout out to Hatsuma.
I know that dude. He bullshitting. That dude, he capping for Xbox. Stop. He trying to put you on P-Rock. I seen this dude before.
I'm see on Twitter.
He
I know. My man be playing. Yo, Hatsumi said it doesn't help that Phil kept overselling. They put extra pressure on their own devs. This is bad. Them not delivering hurts the image bad. It could be, man. Like,
that's true.
Like, you know, how about this? Ask the devs, hey, this is what we're creating. What do you think we could do? Well, we think we could do this. All right, since you guys say think, we're not going to advertise that yet. Until, you know, like, balance it out. Don't be like, hey, native 4K 60 ray tracing is a standard. And the developers looking at Angry Bird like motherfucker, like, this guy fucked it up, bro.
Yeah.
You know, that's like the whatchamacallit, the coach when LeBron said in Miami, not 1, not 2, not 3, 5, and the coach was like, shit, this dude probably
only
got
got
championships. Like,
my question real quick before Cole goes. Yeah. Why are they questioning the castle part? I don't get that, because the reflection is showing more than what you're actually seeing in this little crop area. But why they questioning the castle part?
They're saying that it looks on the left, it looks like a bunch of skyscrapers, but on the right, it looks like all those buildings have been merged together into like a castle. So he's trying to make a joke. It ain't funny, but he's trying to make a joke. It's trash.
Like, I could see the trees, right? Like, the trees, you could tell they downscaled it. But when I saw that video, it was necessary to maintain 30 frames. Like ray tracing is really, really hard. It's not.
Yeah, it's really taxing. For
it's
sure.
really taxing, and I don't think. And instead of people learning from that Digital Foundry video, they used it as ammo, right? And I'm like, I hope you realize this applies to Xbox, and they may not have
exactly.
It may not be easy.
You know the beauty of the video is that he also mentioned PC too. He brought up the PC and how it would bring down the frames and all that stuff as well.
Anywhere. But I want to get back to J-Dub though, because you ain't gonna get away with that, Jay. So here's the thing. Here's the thing, J-Dub. Okay. You asked me to listen to you closely, and I did.
Yes,
and sir. And you and Rock made a good point. Y'all was very clear. You said, okay, Tim Dog will take his L and he will apologize and move on. Yes. But all his little thousands of minions, they gonna keep it going. Yes. The problem, Jay, is when you going at them, people like me and Mac be catching strays and we ain't did nothing.
Yes. Yeah.
And y'all don't have no regard or no concern for the people that's catching the strays.
My bad, brother. I'm sorry you're a casualty of war, my brother.
There's a lot of collateral damage in this street.
Cole, when the ponies is stampeding through, you got cleared away.
Yeah, man. The stampede ain't moving.
When that stampede coming on Twitter, you just gotta like, hey man, go your way.
Yo, I'm like, to make this omelet, we gotta crack some eggs. You know, this omelet ain't gonna be made without cracking these eggs. So we crack
it. Yo, when we get riled up, man, there's no stopping it. There's no
we ride out.
Facts.
Yo, listen, Mac City, he said, I get my troll on like the rest of us, but I love Spider-Man, I love Xbox, I love God of War, Last of Us 2, Ghost of Tsushima, I bought Miles for 70. See, that's my man right there. That's my man's right there. Mac City, that's what I'm talking about.
You know, it's that super chat though, Mac City? You mentioned all PlayStation games, but the console itself for Xbox. I'm just letting you know.
I'm just saying, my man Mac City, facts 100%. That's so true. That's my man's right there. See, he didn't just Mac is a dude that will bullshit, game. But when it comes time to play games, he's gonna play them. He's like, whatever.
Hey, yo, Cole, I'm
gonna play this for
all PlayStation games. Yeah. Hey, he said, I love Xbox man, in that middle.
Look, man, the man did that because the super chat only will give you so many characters.
Yeah, I know. I feel you.
To y'all that he that he played on PlayStation, so he was giving y'all receipts. That don't mean that he didn't have no games on Xbox. Okay, you can only fit so many characters in, man.
My bad, Mac.
But technically, you don't need a lot of room to name Xbox games. They hardly have any. So you ain't got. It's not like you got a lot to list.
Oh my god!
Hey, Cole should have been here at the beginning of the generation when it was just starting out.
So much content.
You missed a lot.
There is so much content
on Twitter
to this.
I was doing mostly programming stuff, and I was really invested in like perfecting my craft, and like a lot of people that follow me are like engineers and stuff, and I was focusing on that and not really the game and stuff. Then I started getting in the game and Twitter like late.
I don't think Cole would have liked it, man, because you had dudes peeing on PlayStation. I don't think you would.
But Cole, listen, I want to
burning
look how crazy
burning PlayStation on the outside and claiming it was overheating.
Let me show you how crazy this was. I want to bet simply because I said that when Xbox One X came out November 2017 and everybody was hyping it to the point where it was going to be the most sold system. And I said, nah, PlayStation 4 is going to outsell Xbox. Watch. And they came down to a bet. I bet it Zaire and I bet it D-Batch and I won. I'm going to show you a video. This dude, who was it? What's his name? He captured almost he compiled into a 20-minute video, a 20-minute video, a 15-minute video. And he compiled almost months and months of podcasts. And it almost looked like a documentary of me and an Xbox dudes going at each other about who's gonna win November. Month after month, podcast after, and he compiled it in this 20-minute video. I'm gonna send it to you. I'm gonna send it to you.
Yeah. And the man ain't even paying back his he ain't even paying.
And then man, and the after story, my man D-Batch tried to pay I bet D-Batch $20, right?
I don't believe that. I know D-Bat's gonna pay his best. I don't believe.
No, dog, bro.
No.
He tried to pay me back with Assassin's Creed Unity code that he got for $1 from CD Checkers. I'm not lying.
I'm only hearing one side of the story, man.
No. I'm not lying, yo. This is all captured on. This is all captured on TV. This is all captured on podcast.
We had to shame him. He
didn't pay me for a whole year.
A year.
It took like a year. So it's documented videos that they go back and forth.
I swear I could be making this up.
How much
$20.
was
It was $20. And I didn't even want to bet him. I didn't even want to bet him. The first time, he's like, bet me $20. And like, the only reason why I took the bet with Z is because
he asked for the bet?
No. So he asked for it. I told him no the first time, right? Because the bet was just between me and Z. And I was cool with it because we did this bet in 2016. So it was still Project Scorpio, so it was fair, right? But as the months was rolling by, I knew I was going to win the bet. I'm like, oh, this bet is won. I'm like, by May, I was like, yeah, this bet is won. I won. There's no way Xbox is going to win this bet, right? Especially with rumors of PS4 being boxed in with Uncharted 4 for $200. I'm like, oh, yeah, I won.
Oh, yeah, it was a wrap.
It's over. It's a wrap. But people still want to bet me. I'm like, nah, because I'm not going to rob people. I know I won this bet. It's over. It wasn't until the following podcast where he started cursing me out. Oh, you're an idiot. You're stupid. You're scared. I'm like, okay, motherfucker. Wow. Fine. Cool. I'll bet the $20. Wow. This is documented. I will show you. I got to find the video, and I'm going to show it to you. And you're going to see it, and you're going to be like, oh, my God. The funny part is
$20 is so light, too.
And just like now, you notice the Xbox community is like, oh, cool. Don't disrespect developers. And, the same thing happened. Like, before the bet, this is the truth. Xbox is the true console. PlayStation's done. Worst version of multiplats. It's going to, Xbox going to take over sales. Everyone's going to play on it. All this hype.
And that motherfucker didn't win one single NPD.
And then as soon as PlayStation won NPD, now it's kumbaya. Now it's good for gaming. Every console. So wait till I show you the video. You're gonna die laughing when you see it. You're gonna be like,
to play the victim.
Wait, you said the man did or did not pay you a dub? Because a dub is nothing.
No, a year later he paid me the dub, and that's only because he's been shamed to death. We
shamed him.
Yo, we had to shame him
almost every episode. We
were shaming him so bad, especially in the end. And we was like, you know what? Enough of this. It's been a fucking year. D-Batch, pay that man. And he finally paid him, but he was reluctant. He was really reluctant to pay him.
It's interesting. I'm gonna have to see that. I'm reserving my opinion until I see the evidence because it just seemed like an easy thing to do to just give somebody a little digital dub. That's nothing. Unless he feel you cheated him or something.
Oh, here we go. If the video's called November PD Chronicle. Woo! I found it. I found that shit fast too. Here you go.
Okay, D-Batch is in here. No, that's a fake D-Batch.
No, that's somebody doing a fake drink.
Yeah. Copy link. I'm gonna send it to you.
I don't understand why dudes be doing that.
Enjoy this video. Sit back, relax whenever you have time.
Grab all right, I'm gonna check it out. I'm definitely gonna check it out.
Yeah, people are running the bets fair and square, man. He should have paid him up easily. You know what I mean? But
Cole, can I ask you one question, man?
All right, listen, I'm gonna put the link in the super chat. Okay, cool. It's like put that link in the super chat. Don't worry, I'll get it for you. Go ahead, go say what you're gonna say.
So Cole, you've been seeing these games right over the last 3-4 years between Xbox and PlayStation. I think you saw Demon Souls and all of Sony's games that they got for the PlayStation 5, right? Most of them are looking godly. I mean, just good. Now
about this bug snacks, although I do want to get the platform. Well, what you talking about?
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's our knack. We okay with that. That's our knack. All right. But, we allow one knack for every God of War is a knack, right? So. Version played out. Now we know Microsoft bought 30 studios, right? And then
all of the Xbox fanboys.
Do you think that Microsoft can deliver the quality games, or the quality type of games that PlayStation has been delivering. Do you think Microsoft have it in them to do it? Do you think that, or you think? I mean, what's your thoughts on that? I mean, because that's what the gamers are really looking for, right? They're really looking for Microsoft to counter with PlayStation, with Naughty Dog and Guerrilla Games and Sucker Punch and all those guys. Do you think Microsoft have it in them to deliver that?
So first, let me be very clear. So people call me like Jay Barry on Twitter, like he called me an Xbox guy. I'm like, why you say that? He's like, I was like, I never said that. So look, to be very clear, I don't consider myself an Xbox guy, Sony guy, Nintendo guy. Yeah, it's just I buy all the consoles and I play on them. And like whatever's hot at the time, that's where I'm at. But I don't really consider myself an Xbox guy. I just like telling the truth about all the platforms.
No. That's why we on this panel, we consider you the neutral and the reason head of the Twitter street. Okay. You know what I'm saying? You the guy that has the background credentials to be able to flow through both sides and see the real shit, right?
All right, that's what's up then.
So that's how I kind of, that's how I view.
So I'm not going to cap for Xbox. I'm going to call everybody on their trash the same as anybody else, and then I will congratulate whoever. So to answer your question, though, do I think so? The short answer to your question is yes, I do. Because I know what you mean by quality, but quality is such a subjective term. Different people mean different things, but I understand the point you're making, Jay. And here's what I will say. In the same way that Guerrilla, when Killzone was starting to fall off and they came out with Horizon and instantly put themselves in Hall of Fame status, it shows you, because at the end of the day, y'all, game development is hard. Game development is actually extremely hard. And when you have a talented team, you want to try to keep that team together. And so what you do is you look at, like, the Guerrilla's the best example I can use. Okay, we got this game team and we got this director. Okay, they made Killzone. Killzone wasn't horrible. It's not as popular as I was, but let's give that team a different director or let them work on somebody else's vision or however you want to look at it, but give them the opportunity to make something else that they actually want to make. Because you keep that talent together. And what Microsoft is investing in is talent. So let's just say, let's not use Skyrim. Let's just say Fallout 76. Okay, people don't like it. It's boring, which I thought it was extremely boring.
Metacritic,
I played it. Me and my son, we played it, and because he enticed me into playing. No, Dad, it's gonna be tight. Watch. I'm like, this trash. You've been disowned. But point is, but you take that team, though, that team isn't trash. We got to separate a game from not meeting our expectations to the team being trash. You take that same team, get them with another director with a different vision, and you have them build this. So my short answer to your question is yes, I think Microsoft can deliver and rival Sony. It is theoretically possible. Do I think it will happen right away? My answer to that is no. I think that Microsoft got some rounds in the chamber, but Sony is already letting off their clip. And so if Sony only makes sequels, and we know they're going to do new IPs and the whole thing that they just do, they're the best at what they do. So if Sony only made sequels, it would be very difficult for Microsoft to even match their sequels. But I don't think they have to. I think that Microsoft can get close enough to show that they're serious. And then when the next Skyrim comes around or whatever, I don't even know what their plans are as far as multi-plat exclusive, all of that stuff. But I do know that Microsoft has acquired the talent, and now they just need to start pairing that talent up with different directors, different designers. But I don't know that it will ever match Sony, but I think it can rival Sony.
Okay.
And it should rival Sony. That's what we want. So
both of them can push us all. If they pull that off, it helps all of us. Absolutely. The worst things that ever happened was for Madden to get that exclusive license.
Oh, that's the worst.
Killed off the UK football game.
That was worse. I just think, I don't know, man. I've been gaming for a long time, and I've seen even at Sony's worst was still better than Sony's best, or end up coming out being better. So
that made no sense. Sony's worst was better.
I think he meant Microsoft's best.
Okay, my fault.
Yes.
Because I was like, wait a minute.
Yes, that's what I meant. So it came out wrong.
My fault, player.
So I just know like you say, it takes a lot, right? It's a lot of moving pieces into this gaming thing. You got the development side, you got the management side, you got the publishing side. Everything has to click in the right, have the right synergy, and the game has to be released. Everything has to work in order. It has to be perfect in order for your game to come out in the best light. I just don't think Microsoft themselves have the right management people in place to pull it off.
Cole, you made a great point about something before.
I'm not talking. Wait, hold on. I'm not talking about the studios. I'm not talking about the developers. I'm talking about the actual management team that can manage all of these portfolios of developers and teams. IP.
Is that his job? Or no, Matt Booty.
Yeah,
listen. Matt Booty, Aaron Greenberg, Phil Spencer, Satya Nadella, none of them. I don't think any of them have the pedigree to do what Nintendo or Sony does with their vast portfolio of.
Why do you think that?
I'm gonna tell you why. Right, for one, they have numerous resources that Nintendo and Sony don't. They have the checkbook, and generally, Nintendo and Sony are only limited by their checkbook. So imagine if Sony would have had a checkbook that looks like Microsoft's checkbook, right? Last generation, let's go back. When Steve Ballmer was the head of the company, when he was managing stuff, and we had Peter Moore, and we had the rest of the guys that were there. The synergy they had, look at the product that they had, and look at the quality of games they had, look at the deals they had, and look at how that generation turned out for them, right? This generation, whole different ballgame. And I just ultimately, I know people like to give Phil Spencer a pass, but
not a pass.
He took that. Well, I know a lot of people like to say, well, I'm like, okay, listen, Donnie D left 4 to 5 months after the console dropped, right? That's enough time for you to take over and make and do something. And here it is, we're going into next generation, and things are still not falling into place like they need to be. And I just feel like you're giving them too much time. When does he become accountable for?
I think Jada. So I hear you, and I hear the point that you're making, and I tried to address this earlier, and I don't think I've done a good job. Using your current metrics, you are correct. If you look at the quality of games, building the game that's exclusive to the platform, drawing people to the platform, selling Xboxes, you are correct. But if you look at their metrics, which are, again, his job is to make money for his owners. What we call Microsoft's worst generation, which is the one we currently in, as far as they are concerned, it's their most profitable ever. And they did it by flipping the script. And so while you are true that they are not making the numbers for this traditional model, that's true. But the point is they're not trying to. What they're trying to do is keep the division alive, which they have. And they're saying there are other ways to make money off of gaming where we don't have to make that big upfront investment. We don't have to wait for this cycle where we spend $200 million to make the game, then hope it sells, so on and so forth. We got to compete with this, compete with that. They're going after a different approach. They still want the AAA stuff, but that is not their focus. Their focus is on what they call, what do they call it? Quality AA or whatever. But the point is like not trash games, but more bite-sized games with the AAA sprinkled in. Yeah, like they want the AAA, but they want it sprinkled in. They don't want that to be the focus because that is the most expensive. And what, from their point of view, Phil is making money for his owners, so they think he's doing a great job. From the traditional console gamer, they're doing a horrible job But for them, they're winning hand over fist because that bank account is growing from gaming where it was getting hammered before. And I think the numbers are now is like there is a number, and I think it was 40 million. I have to check, but I think once they reach 40 million paid Game Pass subscribers, and they willing to take 5-10 years to get there, but once they reach that 40 million subscribers, it don't matter how much a game sells, it will never sell more than what they get in Game Pass subscriptions in a month. And so it's like they haven't hit that yet, but like that's what they aim, and there is a critical mass beyond which the traditional model will be destroyed, and it won't even be close. So they play a different game.
Well, see, that's the thing about it. Go ahead.
Shout out to Mac City. He said PlayStation has the better games. It's not like the Xbox is not gearing up to fight back this generation. They are making moves to push gaming forward. I'm excited for Xbox future.
Agreed.
Time will tell. I mean, with that Bethesda move, they were serious. They showed they serious. And then he says, Mac City again, thank you for the super chat. He says, why are ponies Xbox this, Xbox that? If you don't own an Xbox and never will, why do you care that what Xbox does? This confuses me. Well, I actually do own an Xbox One. That's the reason why
we all do. We all do.
In fact, Jay Barry warned me not to buy it because he bought like 3 of them, and I didn't listen to him. I actually have an Xbox.
I warned P-Rock. Everybody was telling because P-Rock was hanging with Zaire and them, and I was like, hold on. Let me talk to my brother P-Rock real quick. Listen, you gonna buy that joint? You're not gonna play it. They don't have no games.
Yeah.
What up, B-Money?
So we all have Xboxes here.
And we all do, but that's a defensive mechanism that those guys use because they don't want to hear the truth.
Now there are people that fit in that boat, but I don't think those people are on podcasts. I agree. I think there's those people on Twitter with no face and no name.
Yeah,
like I ain't gonna put my face on a podcast and not talk about something I don't own or never plan to own and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? So we all have Xboxes here. I honestly don't play it though. Like I honestly
no lie. If Sony was in the same position, I'd expect everybody on this panel to be saying the same shit about that.
Yes, just listen.
I'm gonna tell you this: say what you want, but ponies, man, we give fucking Sony hell when it's some shit that we don't like. I remember.
You saw me.
Right? I remember.
Everybody thought I was going to Xbox.
Exactly. Porter Rock just went ham 2 weeks ago. Yeah, and then y'all remember when what was that game went to when I think it wasn't Horizon Zero Dawn, but it was some Sony game went to PC. And PlayStation, the whole community went ham. No, we don't want this. Sony dudes went ham. Like we do not fuck with our games. Do not give our games away. Do not, because we hold them exclusives kind of close because that is the reason you buy a console.
I hear you. That never made sense to me. But Chris Righteous, we talked it out. I still don't agree with it, but he explained to me the mindset behind it, and I understand it better, and I'm more sensitive to it. I still don't agree with it, but it makes more sense.
Optimus, I'm gonna tell you what it is. It's a fear. It really is a fear. It's a fear that Sony is going to become like Microsoft, right? Where it's just nothing but mediocre games and they don't care. Their heart is not really into it. And that's bad for gaming. We want to be able to keep getting these God Awards and Spider-Man and Days Gone and all these brand new IPs and experience and truly next gen stuff, right? I mean, what if Sony was in the position that Microsoft was in right now with no first party games coming? What if both companies no first party games and all we're going to be playing is 2K and Madden for the next 2 years? That's bad for gaming.
J-Dub, it's also what P-Rock said earlier, is that when you start developing for all these multiple, platforms, the quality kind of diminishes. We don't want the quality to diminish. We want the same type of animation, same type of detail in our PlayStation games, story development. We don't want no cut costs. We don't want none of that shit. That's why we big up the exclusives and all that stuff like that. If an exclusive ain't good, we'll let you know. But at the end of the day, the quality is there.
Look,
my biggest
this
fear,
generation.
I would say one of my biggest
generation.
fears.
Go ahead.
Wait,
this generation to me is this generation. This generation to me, Tango. I know, right? This generation to me is the best generation in gaming I've ever had. Even with the nostalgia, right?
That's why.
I'm not using nostalgia. Nostalgia is like drugs, right? Yeah. You always want to get hooked on the nostalgia from back in the day. Yeah. We're talking about from the quality and the amount of exclusives. This generation ushered in podcasting, and voice, not only but podcasting, video chat, voice chat, all this stuff that we have. Like most of us in here are talking right now over podcasts because of this generation, not last generation, because of this generation. It's the first generation to give us true VR, and so we got PlayStation VR. Yeah. This generation gave a lot to us. Now I get it that Microsoft wasn't on the upside of this generation, but it's fine. They can be up on the next side. But this generation to me is one of the best. We've had so many high quality caliber, even Nintendo knocked it out the box this generation, with the Switch. And so that's just my opinion, but
I mean, there's a lot of sense in that. Yeah. For me, the best generation was back in the golden era of PC, like right when the Pentium 90 first came out, the 3DFX cars.
This guy's playing the Oregon Trail and shit.
Bro, far back, Negro. It was like, man, like Wing Commander, like all of that stuff where PC was dominant and like you couldn't get a game on console that was on PC. It just was not possible.
Yeah.
Shout out to
that being said, I do agree that because I did a top 10 consoles of all time, and the PS4 won my second greatest console of all time in my 40 years of gaming. And man, I just finished playing through God of War. I was a damn fool because like I tried that game, I didn't like it. Stopped playing it, and everybody was like, "Man, you got to play it again. You got to play it again." I was like, "All right, let me try it." And I was like, "What the fuck was I smoking?" It's like, "Oh my god, this game is
amazing, man!
Fabulous."
Yeah.
Shout out to Rome Rush. He said ponies care about gaming. That's why we talk about Xbox. Criticism is not bad. It's necessary. That's true for every product.
What up, Rome? What up, player?
Yeah.
Get you some batteries for that controller, my guy.
Yeah. If Xbox guys would have had the criticism for Phil Spencer and Microsoft and those executives and stuff like that regarding Xbox would look totally different than it does today.
But they do have it now, which is why it's changing.
Yeah, Max City Entertainment.
Well, that's the end of the generation by the time they finally decided to start admitting what we've been saying for 7 years. 40 Rock been out there preaching the gospel. Jabari been out there trying to bang their heads with the gospel. I've been out there trying to troll them with the gospel. I mean, it took 7 years. It took 7 years for them to finally admit, shit ain't looking good.
My man Max City said, I know y'all do, but some of the biggest voices don't own one OG Xbox. It'd be weird out here, but talk the most. That always tripped me out. That's true. There's some dudes on Twitter that they're just fake dudes and fake personas out there. So that's true. Rome Rush. Lots of fans like us own at least one Xbox this generation. And Max City said, okay, I agree with that, J-Dub. And that's the comment saying that this is the best gen out because of all the things that we got this. And it's true, man. This generation brought a lot. It's crazy because the console war got increased by exponentially because, this shit is crazy. But also, like, the community got, big. Podcast. I mean, look, like you said, we're all together. Like where we live at, we live in different parts of the world, different parts of the country, and we're here now just talking about our hobby. You know what I'm saying?
Also, you can look at it as a quantity thing. Like this generation is the most games I've ever owned ever. You know what I mean? And I play a lot of games back in the day as well. But
you just got a job, Jay Barry, so that all adds up.
Well, I bet a job and all that stuff. Yeah. But you know what I mean?
I first heard about Jay Barry when he was there, was ripping it on Zair's podcast. I'm like, who's this dude killing them with facts? I'm like, let me check out his channel. I'm like, oh shit, he's a PlayStation dude. Hit the
Jay Barry was
yeah, Jay Barry was out there. It was bad in these days, man. I'm telling you.
Listen, the funny thing about it.
Oh, you don't know the old school next gen. Oh, you have no idea.
The funny thing about it,
listen. Next gen is the blame for all of this shit. The Xbox community, he created that shit. He created, that man was out. Next gen, Zaire.
Oh yeah,
shout out to my boy Next Gen.
He was King Bot. He was King Bot.
Yes, he did.
This dude was the man. He's the Don King all this shit. And
I tell Zay all the time. I tell him all the time. I say, this is your fault. This is all your fault.
Listen, this is Next Gen. When Sony gave up their PC division, has nothing to do with PlayStation. He found the way to convince everybody that because that happened, they don't have enough money to make exclusive games. So all we're gonna get is indies and multiplats.
Yeah.
Yo, P-Rock. I remember.
That dude's a legend. He created some of this shit that took on
Back then was so funny. Back then was so funny because I remember like first meeting P-Rock. It was like a breath of fresh air because Zaire used to do this like Pony versus Xbox show, right? And I was on there like 2 times, but I couldn't do it. As of late, because I was doing like the What's Up PlayStation website, and I was like, what, I don't want to do like, debating no more. Like, I'm trying to grow this. At the time, I was trying to grow this What's Up PlayStation brand. Then P-Rock came through one of these days, bro. And I remember in the chat, I was like, this dude P-Rock is the truth. I was like, this dude, and every week he was slapping these Xbox up. Every single week, I was like, let's go. They had Zaire used to get ponies. Zaire used to get ponies from like the Facebook group, and he used to ask me, he's like, get some ponies. But they don't know how to debate, you know what I mean? So they don't know how to bring that pizzazz. You got to bring the pizzazz as well.
Yeah. Okay.
So they was getting destroyed. I ain't even going front. They was getting destroyed.
They were hemmed up.
Yep.
People came through and he was slapping them up.
It was so bad that they bought a PC dude, right? And then at the end, he got hemmed up, and it was Rambo. And
Rambo.
Like, what's going on? And Rambo, I'm really a PC dude. And that's when you know what? Let me hit Zay in the DM. I'm like, you need to stop getting these fake dudes because you're making PlayStation dudes look bad. He's like, then you do something. And I was like, all right, fuck it. Give me an invite. And then that's it. It was a wrap.
He definitely was destroying.
Was like the savior.
Yeah, because like I said, a lot of people don't understand. Like, you can bring the facts, but nobody's gonna listen to the facts if you just say, "Hey, PlayStation has this." Nah, you got to bring the pizzazz. You got to put the hot sauce on it. You know what I mean? You got to say, PlayStation killing it with blah blah. You know what I mean? And then now they will listen to you, and he was bringing the charm to it as well. So that's why a lot of that.
It's funny how the most diehard Xbox guys from early this generation end up signing that Kratos contract and turning into a pony.
Oh yeah, facts.
Okay, hold on. Since y'all giving me this history lesson, where did the term pony come from? Because I think that was
he had a My Little Pony, and he used to hold it and be like, "Yeah, my pony got a fat ass." He started that shit, man. I'm telling you. You know what you do? I invite you to go to Z's channel, sorted by oldest, and look at his old shit. That man was in his prime with this Xbox shit. He called them Sony Pony. Woo, my pony got a fat ass, and he used to slap it in front of TV.
You know what's funny? I would have been in this community if it wasn't for Zaire. I remember watching his videos. I was like, this man talking hella crap,
Z's the bad.
And he said, come and join my Facebook group, and that's how I really joined this community.
Oh, he's a man. He created all this shit, all this craziness on Pony versus Xbox, and then he realized once he started getting games like Sea of Thieves and Crackdown and Phantom Rush original assets, he backed out. You know why I can't do this?
He couldn't do no more.
Xbox is not giving me the games. He's like, I can't do this no more. He's like,
so he signed the pony contract or whatever J-Dub just said.
He couldn't do it no more.
Yeah, when that X came out and it wasn't launched with just like the Series X, there wasn't launched with no games. You saw a different Z. You saw a different Z. You're gonna do it no more.
Yeah, when he got the Series X and they started releasing that, and he's like, wait a minute, I got the world's. That's when you see Z. He's like, I got the world's most powerful console, and he put the picture of God of War and Sea of Thieves next to each other. He's like, look at that. that shit. And look at this shit. He's like, hey, but see the water. Fuck that water.
But you know, and here comes this generation. Just next generation is starting, and we're back in the same position, bro.
Z, the other day, I think maybe like 3 weeks on his podcast, he was like, we were talking, I just mentioned, imagine if Xbox doesn't launch with ray tracing in its 4K 30. He's like, man, I hope it does. It's good for business. It's like, shit. I hope that shit's 1440p. It's good for business. I'm like, he's crazy. He's like, that shit's be good for business. Shit, I will tear that console apart. I hope that shit's 1080p. It's good for business. I'm like,
man,
that is easy. Don't care, man.
Oh, he ain't got no integrity at all, man.
He helped me put me on. He helped me grow my channel, man. He gave me so much advice over this.
Yeah.
Good dude, speaking of that, man, I want to go ahead and say that too, Rock, because when I first, like I told y'all, my time on Twitter was spent mainly with engineers and like other developers and that stuff. And eventually I started getting into gaming Twitter. And I just kept seeing so much wrong information and people speaking authoritatively about stuff that was just wrong. So I would try to be like, hey, this isn't true or that, or like, blah, 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 just trying to explain. Because my goal is to like help people understand technology better, because there was a time when I didn't understand this shit at all. And so I was real sensitive to trying to help other people learn. But I noticed they was like arguing with me over like dumb shit. Like, what are you talking about? And Rock reached out to me and he was like, hey man, it's like, you wasting your time.
Oh yeah. On Twitter? Yeah.
Yes. He was like, man, you trying to educate people, but they not trying to be educated. They don't want to hear you. All they do is they're going to blindly defend Xbox no matter what you say. Mm-hmm. And I was like, no, I said the same thing I just said. I was like, no, Rock, I got to be patient. I got to help them learn. He was like, okay.
Oh my God. I'm like, this dude thinks he's Jesus. I'm like, oh shit.
You gotta understand, on Twitter they got the horse blinders on. Those race horses?
Yeah.
They can't see the left, they can't see the right. They just see right in front of them. They don't care what you say. You can bring all the facts you want, bro.
I let them do. But I told them, don't catch a heart attack if what you say don't end up. Like, go ahead.
Man, he did.
I was like,
multiple times. Like he was like, hey bro, like, look man, I'm telling you. And so it would be like a 30 tweet thread where I'm arguing with somebody and then tweet 31 to be him. Hey bro, I told you. Mm-hmm. So then finally I'm like, man, you know what, this dude is right. Yeah. And I watched one of his podcasts and he was like, man, you can't really have no conversations on Twitter. That's why I have my podcast for being serious. But Twitter is just jokes and trolling and fun.
Yeah, 100%.
Like, you know what? He's right.
Podcast is the way to go to talk. But Twitter?
Yeah, exactly. No, and I was like, okay, fair enough. I'm just going to start having fun like everybody else.
I learned that lesson too. I'm like, I'm done with this shit. I'm just going to war.
That's the same thing with me. Like, people be like, they judge me off of my tweets. Yeah. But when they come to my channel, it's like, wait, hold up. Is this the same motherfucker right here? Like, you bash your PlayStation? You talking bad about PlayStation? Yeah, because I'm talking.
Yeah. But Twitter, hell nah. It's for the fuckery. I will have war on Twitter. Fuck that. I will have my war. Shout out to Mac. He says, if it wasn't for Z, I would not be here in this community. I didn't have a public voice in 2013, but I ain't never leaving Xbox. All you guys got talent. My man said I ain't leaving Xbox. Oh shit.
Yo, a lot of them dudes betrayed Z2, man. Like, he put a lot of people on, man, and just because he got a little difference of opinions now, it's old.
You can't come home. You can't come home. Better not let you come back to Xbox.
Crazy.
Yo, that shit is funny. Yo, so
me and Zaire been debating for years. I never had no ill will towards it. And he been loving Xbox.
Yeah.
What does this mean? Man, I've seen a video. Oh my God. J-Dub, I think you posted it Or was it Rock? No, Rock. You posted it about some guy that was like with his dirty ceiling, like you can't come back, and we don't.
Yeah.
He's like Portal Rock.
Oh, man.
He's like,
Like, what are you? You can't stop nobody from buying an Xbox or a PlayStation. Like, who are you to tell people what they can own and what games they can play? Like, I don't understand this mindset at all.
He's like Portal Rock. He was like, oh shit.
Yeah. He came at Portal Rock.
He's like Portal Rock.
What's his name? I think his name is Sega something.
Sega Forever or something like that. Oh, that shit is funny.
Yeah.
Yo, my man Road Rush.
That whole little crew don't like you.
Oh,
Portal Rock. Not Portal Rock.
That's 100.
The Sega
Rock.
dude. Yeah, they don't like you.
Oh, no, they can't stand me. Rome Rush, good points, y'all. That was my mistake. I took Twitter too seriously, too. I learned the hard way. Laugh aloud. Oh,
Facts.
Man.
We both did, man.
Xerox, he said, can y'all talk about the story that Series X being 9.6 after using 20% 3D audio, whereas Sony won't be affected by it? I'll mention it. All right, so let me pull it up because I had it on the screen. But I'm gonna say this: I don't know how true it is. I don't wanna bring up alternative facts. But let me see.
Yeah, I gotta rewatch that. They quoted Digital Foundry in that little thing. So
I had it up for a minute. Okay, here it is. So I put it up on the screen, and it says, I don't know where it came from, but it said today, depending on how developers utilize their 3D audio, this could be a substantial drain on the CPU GPU. On average, many games are utilizing upwards of 20% of the computational power, and based on how the Xbox Series X is allocating its CPU GPU for the next gen, nothing here has changed. On paper, 12 T-flops is an awesome number. However, when you remove 20% of that computational power for audio purposes, you are left with about 9.6 T-flops for everything else necessary to bring your game to life. Still, an impressive resource of power allocation, yet for the PlayStation 5, the GPU has no audio responsibility, allowing the creators to utilize as much of the system's raw 10.28 T-flops of power. According to Digital Foundry, Microsoft's design decisions with the Xbox Series X means developer must be more mindful of the potential power consumption that could impact clock speeds and lower performance. For the PlayStation 5, this means developers can hit GPU frequencies much higher. I don't know.
I can tell you right now that all of that's false.
Okay.
Disregard all of that shit.
Yeah, that's why I didn't jump on that. I'm like, 20% for audio? I'm like, don't they have an dedicated audio chip?
No. Both PlayStation.
I'm running with it. Hey, they've been running with all that fake news for the last 2 years, talking about RDNA 0 and shit.
J-Dub Savage, yo. J-Dub Savage.
J-Dub don't care. He's like, I'm running. It's happening. You're going to have to prove to me.
The Xbox, the Series X, and the PS5 have at least one, maybe even two CUs dedicated to nothing but audio. So it is completely separate from the other functions of the GPU. Yeah. But JW, you can run with it if you want to, player. I'm just saying that's
I know. You know me. I'm just pissing people off.
And you will. You run that article, man. You're gonna get them hits. 9.6.
Oh yeah, that's a fact. I know. I'm gonna wake up tomorrow and I'm like, yo, he got like mad people retweet this shit.
J-Dub's gonna put 10.
With that, I'm not gonna lie. I was on a Zoom call at work, and I was browsing Twitter while I was at work on my Zoom call, and I seen that dumbass picture you had about who did it better with Craig on the screen and them two fans on that Xbox. And I promise I spit up my water laughing. I had to turn off my camera because I was cracking up right in the middle of my call. I'm like, oh my God, where does he come up with this stuff? How did you come up with that? Like, who did that? Because that shit was hilarious, man.
Oh, man.
This sounds a good army.
Yeah, man.
It's just yeah. Oh, man. So, hey, I'm going to end the show here. It's already 8:30 here, so I would imagine it's pretty late for you guys in the East Coast and stuff like that. I don't know where you guys are at. But hey, Optimus Cole, truly appreciate you were able to come to the podcast. Truly appreciate the knowledge and perspective and try to bring common sense to all of this. Really appreciate it, brother.
Man, I appreciate the invite, kicking it with my only friend in these YouTube streets. And check me out Sunday nights, me and Hard 8 on Any Given Sunday podcast. Call in. If you want to holler at us, you want to disagree, you want to agree, whatever, just call in, check us out. And shout out to Rock, shout out to Jay Barry, shout out to Troll Master J Dub. They told me that J Dub's trolling status should actually be criminal. They should be able to press charges.
That's federal charges, not even state or city. Federal. You're going straight to the Fed. Oh, shit.
Lock them up. Lock them up.
Hey, I want to say shout out to Craig for stopping by for a little bit, but my man's in the health profession, so he's doing his thing. Hey, yo, J Dub, thanks for showing up.
For sure, bro. For sure.
And J Bar, of course, thank you so much for showing up.
No doubt, man. Best lips.
The best lips in YouTube. That's $1,000, G. Yo,
$1,000, G.
Yo, anyway, hey, to the chat, thank you so much for rocking out with us, man. On your way out, please hit the like button. We truly appreciate the support. Thank you for the super chat, everybody that participated in the combo. Again, this is your boy, Puerto Rock 77. Your only friend in these YouTube streets, and we out of here. Yo, take care. Peace.
Peace.
Deuces.
Deuces. Oh, man. And that's